I'm just imagining it. I'm just imagining you.
Welcome to the Ghostbusters 2 fan convention, guys.
I'm just imagining it. It's like a massive hall and it's just absolutely empty. It looks like what was it, like TanaCon or like what was that?
Kunacon in South Park.
No, there was one in real life where it was like a Tumblr event where there was just like a little paddling pool with like balls in.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining it being you, and you've got like a little name tag, and it's like chairman of the Ghostbusters 2 fan club.
Chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, secretary, and only fan.
Hello and welcome to Two Rules Podcast. I'm your host Liam Reedy, and I'm here with Harry Harding. We're talking all things Ghostbusters. We're going to be talking about the original 1984 film, 1989 sequel, and the new Jason Reitman film, Ghostbusters Afterlife. But before we get into that, just want to say thank you to everyone who has listened over the last couple of months. It's been a great couple of months for the podcast. What we'd really appreciate is if you gave us a follow or a like on any of the social medias that you use. We have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you can find us at Two Rules Podcast. That out of the way, let's get to the films that we're here to talk about today.
I don't know about you, but I am buzzing.
I am too. Seeing as we never see eye to eye, this is clearly quite a rare occurrence. Oh wait, we always see eye to eye.
Yeah.
Well, almost always.
I should probably say to listen to the listeners out there all around the world. After cinema, we went in. We stopped off briefly at a upstanding eatery,
at a restaurant.
At a restaurant with a golden arch, and I just said to Liam, I haven't come out of the cinema feeling so satisfied in a long time, and also that I was pretty much beaming for the entirety of the film. I just had this like gleeful joy inside me.
It was for me. It was there was laughs. There was Paul Rudding. To his absolute best, and I'm going to say this on
Rudd-esque.
I'm going to say this on record that Paul Rudding is better than Ryan Reynoldsing.
I agree.
Especially after our last podcast, which was Red Notice. My will to, I mean, not tolerate, but the Ryan Reynolds has just kind of gone downhill tenfold in my book. Whereas Paul Rudd doing his Paul Rudd shtick,
yeah,
I could watch all day long.
Do you know what? I agree. I haven't seen Red Notice, nor was I a part of that podcast. Apologies to all my fans out there, but but yeah, I agree. I think Ryan Reynolds. I don't know why we're talking about Ryan Reynolds, but just on that subject, I do think Ryan Reynolds is charismatic and charming and likable. But I know what you mean. It's getting a bit tiring now. It's like he's just Deadpool all the time. But I completely agree about Paul Rudd. He was on top Paul Rudd form in this film. And do you know what? It really worked. We were like... I was laughing at everything he said. Not... Well, half because it was genuinely funny, but also just because it's like... so Paul Rudd.
I know, yeah.
Such a Paul Rudd thing to say.
I think it must be he just had like no script. And they were just please react like you would to this scene. You know,
it's one of those actors where he can get away with just playing Paul Rudd in every film, and it works.
Oh, it does work
because he just has that sort of everyday man.
He is an everyman.
Guy next door.
He is an everyman that recently got voted world's sexiest man.
He did, didn't he? He did. They even mentioned that on Talk Sport. That Paul,
the Paul Rudd reach is far and wide these days. But yeah, there was definitely there was laughs, there was tears.
Oh yeah, mate.
And it's been a wild ride for Ghostbusters.
Indeed.
To say the least. Because we're going to touch on the initial 2 original movies, and then piece together what we just witnessed at the cinema all these years later. I'm definitely going to bring up the question: is this the best nostalgia sequel of all time? Because the Hollywood trend as of late, for the last nearly 10 years, I'd say, or maybe even a little bit shorter than that, probably since like Star Wars got bought by Disney, the fact that they were bringing another trilogy kind of opened the floodgates to the nostalgia porn that we have in cinemas now, side by side with the MCU. So yeah, we'll get to that when we get to the actual review of Afterlife.
Yes.
But Ghostbusters, for me, I watched the cartoon as a kid. I think it was only a really short series. I don't think there was like years and years of the cartoon. I just remember it being on in that melee of all the other 90s cartoons, which includes Men in Black, which I'll probably just touch upon a little bit.
Well,
later on,
I think it was late 80s actually.
Oh yeah.
Because I think the cartoon was made during the hiatus between the 2 films.
Yeah, I just remember it being. I remember it being on.
You remember seeing it?
I don't remember. I don't. It wasn't like a new release.
Yeah.
It was definitely like mid to late 80s cartoon. And then I think they made another Ghostbusters cartoon. Which was
it like Extreme Ghostbusters, something like that?
I remember that being on, but it not being as good.
No.
So intrinsically, it's part of the childhood.
Yeah.
For me, and then seeing the original movie, I think I was probably like, I want to say about 8 or 9 when I saw the original. I think I was around my aunt and uncle's house because I remember just watching either The Mask or Ghostbusters every time I went. And I probably went like 2-3 times a year. They probably got pissed off, like we were talked about this in one of the other podcasts where, Joe said about getting a Blockbuster VHS, but getting it multiple times.
Oh yeah.
Surely after a while your parents would think maybe you should just buy it instead of renting it every 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day too. When you're a kid, you do watch the same films over and over again, don't you? It's just one of those things.
And I think the original Ghostbusters was probably one of those for me. Like I said about The Mask, also the original Men in Black. They're like the I've grown out of Disney now, Mum. Like I don't like. I'll watch some live action.
You want to start watching some PG rated,
some PG
live action films.
Exactly.
That are a little bit, they slip in the odd swear word. There's a little bit of innuendo in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not so much into Lion King on VHS anymore. It's Men in Black, Ghostbusters, The Mask.
Yeah, Jim Carrey films.
Yep. Dumb and Dumber.
Like 80s sort of kids movies. Yeah.
So it was part of the more really like the part of the transition from like a very young child to like pre-teen, I would say.
Pre-teen,
like a 10, 11, 12.
That's the correct. So, yeah, that's the age.
So yeah, and Ghostbusters. I think we both watched the movies that made us episodes on Netflix.
Yeah.
Great series. Needs more episodes. Needs more non-horror movies. For my
and also needs a new narrator.
Oh, what? Don't like Danny Wallace?
Is that who it is?
Yeah.
Who's that?
He wrote Yes Man.
No, I don't like him.
Like him.
Other people. Sorry if you're listening, Danny, but other people have mentioned this to me as well about that series. The narration is weird. It's like really jokey. Like
it is jokey.
Making. I just want
info.
I want to watch
a documentary.
I want to watch a documentary, not a stand-up comedian. Like this isn't Come Dine With Me with Dave Lamb.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Are you too much salt on that, Lee? Yeah, I don't want that. I just want, in 1989, John Landis was working on the Blues Brothers, or whatever.
And the episode is all apparently terrible narration aside, it's still a very informative show.
Oh yeah,
and it was just good happenstance that Afterlife was coming out.
It's a great Joe. That show is, if you're like a film buff, movie geek, whatever you want to call it, as we are. That's like our Making a Murderer.
Oh, it is,
isn't
actually.
It? That shows like the.
No, I'll tell you what is the equivalent of Making a Murderer is that the movies series
that
on Sky
documentary. Yeah,
if you watch the movie,
that
it's literally just ultimate. It's so all encompassing. Yeah. They couldn't call it anything else but the movies.
I'm currently watching the music of the movies.
Oh, nice!
I recorded it off Sky Arts. And basically the same thing goes through the decades.
Lovely.
But it's about scores.
And talking of the music of the movies, the theme tune for Ghostbusters is genuinely so iconic. You don't have to tell you that.
There's a theme tune.
Yeah, I know. Well, in Ghostbusters 2, they decided to go way off. They only play it like a couple of times for like 30 seconds, and then in the end credits, I think. But then even in the end credits, they only do it for like another 30 seconds. It's like they don't own the rights to the music, and they only paid for a minute's worth of song.
Well, we'll get onto that. We'll get onto that. Well, I think they were trying to push the Run DMC remix.
Oh, okay.
Which was the main theme of 2.
But I remember seeing it in the movies that made us, that he basically did it all in like a day and a bit, because he had like couriers at the door, basically just trying to get him to have something to send to the studio. And he was just like, I don't know, like
didn't he like get the idea for it from like he saw that the advert in the film, and he was like, I'll do it as if it's like an advert, a jingle.
Yes.
And then he got that night his girlfriend had her mates over. This is the story. I don't know if it's true. So he got his girlfriend and her mates to record Ghostbusters. They were just happened to be there, just having a party. And he was like, "Hey, could you just come in here and say Ghostbusters over and over again?"
All three of you, like,
for 3 minutes.
Yeah, all few of you.
Yeah.
Just I need some backing for this.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just great. And honestly, when it was on in the credits for Afterlife, I was just tapping my feet the whole time.
Same.
It's just, you just can't help but not get into it.
No, I know.
No matter how like low level that is, from just like,
it's a perfect theme song. It's catchy. It's upbeat. It makes you like it gives you the feels.
Yeah, it just gives you the feels, gives you a bit of energy.
Yeah, and it works also really well in within the film as a sort of like a
montage,
inspiring theme tune, as well as just a song.
Encapsulates a time where a lot, if not most, blockbusters had at least a song attached.
Yeah.
Whereas, now we're in, I can't see Dune Part 2 getting a fucking theme song.
Have you seen
to go
that?
With it,
have you seen that Key and Peele sketch where Jordan Peele plays Ray Parker Jr.?
No.
He's like, I've written so many other songs for films that didn't get released. And he's going through all these different movies.
Yeah.
And it's basically just him
all serious
rehashing Ghostbusters, but for serious films. So he's like, 12 Years a Slave, Jumanji. It's just the Passion of the Christ. Just all these serious films. I do think that, yeah.
But it just shows you like that it's again something that's been like parodied to the max, but it's just so iconic that it is just like a piece of. It just is just a perfect snapshot of the mesh of having a theme song for the movie and the song being so successful.
Yeah.
Really, that I don't know. The last time it may have happened is what like in the 90s with Will
I was
Smith.
just thinking that Men in
Probably
Black.
the original Men in Black is
Yeah.
probably the most popular of movies that had also one of the most
tie-in
popular
thing.
songs.
Well, I mean, Wild Wild West was also a banger, despite the film not being great.
Wow.
I mean, you can't deny the song is a banger.
Oh no, the song is
Yeah.
100% a banger. But
Yeah.
we've also stated on this podcast, Sam and I, that no matter how schlocky it is, we both love Wild Wild West.
I love Wild Wild West as well.
We put it in our top 5.
It's great.
So
Yeah.
you know,
But that's a different conversation for a different day.
But yes, and you know, it's such a great introduction to Ghostbusters, especially at the time. If you probably heard the song on the radio or something,
Yeah.
and then you're like, holy shit, I'm gonna see this film,
Yeah.
because that song kicks
Do you know,
ass.
I remember, and I remember, and I looked this up, and this because at the start of Ghostbusters, when we're running out of the library scared, and the title appears on the screen, I've definitely seen a version of that on TV or on VHS where they don't play the song over that. They play Elmer Bernstein's like jazzy.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Score.
Yeah.
But
is
then
it just like piano?
Yeah,
and,
it's like piano.
I've seen that, yeah.
But then after but then I think, I don't know if it was for the home release or whatever. But they then put the song in over the top of that because of how popular it was and how
They
instantly
probably didn't even have the song
when they
for the original
yeah.
release.
I would imagine that they didn't. I don't know for certain.
Because you know, they as well as the visual effects for the movie, they were still doing it days before release.
Yeah.
Which is mental. Would just not happen these
Especially
days.
back then.
Yeah.
When you know they didn't have the technology that people have now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Whereas you know, a lot of you know, I mean, there's probably only a few. I don't think there's any in the original. I don't think there's any quote unquote just CGI. I think it's all just practical.
Yeah.
There might be some. I don't know. Maybe there's a few minor shots that you know.
I think
they got
there's
away
a
with.
few like of the period 80s computer animations.
But a lot of it, most of it's just composite.
Yeah,
you know, just
yeah.
just all done by. I can't remember what the company is called, but it's like an offshoot of ILM. Loads of people left, didn't they? This is all covered in the episode. They all left ILM in the early 80s, post like Return of the Jedi, post Empire, started their own company, and so it was talented people with like a very small budget doing a film which is advertised to be having supernatural beings in it.
Yeah.
And you really don't see too much until the end.
Yeah.
They do it all kind of what's the technique where you just it's like in Jaws where you're just teasing the shark.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in the first one up until the end where you have to actually.
You're right. Other than Slimer, there wasn't really a lot of
ghosts. There's a woman at the very beginning.
But not like to a great extent.
No.
I would say.
Honestly, like they were saying about it being the exact amount of frames that they shot, or the exact amount of frames that you see in the film is the amount of frames that they had of the actual shot of the special effects. Like for the devil dogs, basically, especially when they're in a hotel. I remember one of the interviews saying that basically they used every frame of what they had because it was just like they were just cutting it as they were going. Like they'd say, "Oh, we've got this shot ready to edit," and they were like, "Cool, give it here," and they just put it all in. There was no, "Oh, we've done this shot, but only use a couple of seconds." It was like they just used everything they got.
Yeah.
Practical effects wise, which was really interesting, and it does make you realise how the film is about the characters. It isn't weighed down by everyone wanting to just see ghosts.
No, not at all.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, that's the charm of it. It's about the characters more than it is about busting ghosts or or the
seeing the supernatural.
Yeah.
Up on that screen.
And the origins of it are really interesting as well. I think it was Dan Aykroyd's idea.
Yes.
And then he
was inspired by his own family.
Yeah. Oh, well, he's into, but he's into the occult, isn't he?
He's into the supernatural, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he said his father was a big influence on these movies. Him and his family, who were kind of into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he just over time kind of merged that idea with the time.
Yeah.
The period of time, whereas all of these supernatural things happening. What if they happened today in 1980s New York?
Yeah.
And it's literally just about like initially 3 upstart guys.
Yeah.
2 of them scientific geniuses, and one's like a psychologist who's also friends with them and into the thought of the supernatural. But it's a bit of a.
I've always wondered that, because I know for a fact that Venkman was written for John Belushi, and obviously Zeddemore was written for Eddie Murphy. But John Belushi sadly passed away. Eddie Murphy passed on the project in favour of doing Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes.
So I just wonder. I mean, how different would that film have been without if that had been the case? I mean, it probably still would have been successful, because it's like all the biggest stars of Saturday Night Live in one movie together. It's like the Avengers of Saturday Night Live.
It genuinely, it was.
But I think Bill Murray, having Bill Murray as Venkman instead of John Belushi, and I'm only really going by this on what I've seen. I've only ever seen John Belushi in The Blues Brothers and Animal House.
Yeah.
But I don't think he would have been right for that part.
No, I don't either.
Venkman. Well, the way Bill Murray plays Venkman is a sort of quick-witted, sharp-tongued, sort of cynical womanizer.
Yeah.
I can't see John Belushi doing that. He's more of a sort of loud, obnoxious kind of sort of silly kind of comedian.
Yeah. I see what you're going for, and I agree. This movie was really kind of a move away from the Animal House, National Lampoon style of comedy.
Yeah, exactly.
Movies that came out of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
From the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they made any more after the 80s. I'm not like fresh up on my history of that kind of franchise, but
I think a few. Coneheads was one.
But I'm saying that the Coneheads and this was a move away from the National Lampoon kind of.
Yeah.
And it was into like it's still situational comedy.
Yeah.
But there's a bit more of an overarching story. It's rather than because National Lampoon's kind of like a scary movie.
Yeah.
To compare it to something that we know from our childhood and young adulthood, and this is kind of I feel like it was quite a risk to have a sci-fi comedy, but set in like the now of the time, obviously in '84. But it must have been like a hard pitch, I think. I know that it's got famously Dan Aykroyd. He shopped the idea around and said, Bill Murray's attached, because he had a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Bill Murray said, "Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, sure." And then like no contract, no communication, no nothing, and him and Ivan Reitman were just like, up until the very day that they started shooting, didn't know whether Bill Murray would turn up. I think that's like, again, this is why it's so fascinating, is because if I was Dan Aykroyd or Ivan Reitman, I'd be sweating bullets
that
your main star, quote unquote, is is just maybe not going to turn up, like, and then you don't have a movie.
Yeah.
It literally all did ride on Bill Murray to start with, and then, you know, his performance throughout the film, which they said, you know, once he was there on set, it was easy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, oh, it was rough the whole time. It was just up until that point they were like, oh shit, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
What is going to happen?
Yeah, I know. And like I said, I think he was a perfect fit for that character. You know, if they'd got someone else in to play Venkman, it might not have been. I don't know. It might have worked. It might not have worked. But yeah, but I think it all just fell into place and it worked really well. And you know, yes, I know that they cut down Winston's part massively after Eddie Murphy dropped out. But you know, at least they didn't cut the part out entirely.
Yeah, they could have.
I mean, Ernie Hudson was a complete unknown, I think.
Yeah, so it was like a TV.
They could have you know, they could have just said, "We'll just cut Winston out of the script and make it about the three main guys."
Could have easily done that.
But they brought him in, you know, and you know he was a fully fledged Ghostbuster by the end.
So I think he plays the best. Straight man of all four.
Oh yeah,
because although Dan Aykroyd's character is probably out of the other main three the straightest, because you got Venkman, like you said, he's a bit of a he's a bit aloof, bit of a womanizer, like you said, just a bit, you know, doesn't take anything too serious.
Well, they say it. I don't know if they say it in the film, but they said. I don't know. I don't know where I've heard it. There's documentary or whatever, but they said that Venkman's the mouth.
Oh yeah.
Ray, as in Stantz, is the heart of the Ghostbusters. Obviously Spengler's the brains, and then Winston Zeddemore, he's the everyman. He's the
well, what you just said there was from the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
In Afterlife.
But I've seen that comment before.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
the reason they said that in Afterlife is because that is a quote from one of the actors saying about the original film. That was the basis of the characters. You've got the mouth, the heart, the brains, and then the everyday straight man that like the ordinary guys can relate to. And
he plays the part like so well, because he is just every thought that comes into the audience's mind, he usually just says it out loud.
But at the same time, he's still like, he's not just there for like as a vessel for the audience. No. He does feel like he has his own character and personality, and you know, and you know, I like it when Annie, that bit when he's being interviewed and Annie Potts just reels off this whole list of, do you believe in this, and he's just like, if there's a steady paycheck involved, I'll believe anything you say.
Nice, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, his motivations are, you know, kind of, you know, what you would be, because you're not a scientist or just like into this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great casting. I mean, it's one of those movies that you're just like, it's hard to see anyone else playing those roles. It's also hard to see how they actually got them all together at the same time.
Yeah.
It was just one of those ones where it's just like, it just all just kind of falls into place in terms of casting, which, you know, only really happens rarely.
Yeah.
You know, Sigourney Weaver is great in it. Again, it was one of those ones where they wanted to cast her, thought she would say no, asked, and she said yes. So again, it's just just great casting on
versatile that. As well, actor, you know, she can do like serious drama, horror. Obviously she was probably quite, at that point, out of all of them, she's probably the most famous, because she'd done Alien, and she was a huge star.
Yeah, 100%.
Because Alien was like 79, wasn't it? So she was all well established by then, and then she comes and does this low budget, in the sense that it's like kind of has a B movie.
Oh, it's very
sci-fi comedy,
very B movie
with a bunch of guys who aren't really, like, at that point they're not like actors.
They're jokers.
They're Saturday Night Live comedians.
Yeah, literally.
So I like that. Great casting. Rick Moranis as well is brilliant.
Yeah.
In that, as Louis Tully, great character.
God, he plays it. He plays it perfectly.
Yeah, he's really funny in that film. I'd really like him in that.
He's definitely. Whenever I think of the word dweeb, I think of that character.
He's a total dweeb.
Yeah,
he's a total dweeb,
and that's like not even. That's not really even like majorly offensive as a word.
No,
I'm just like I'm just like there's no other word for it. He's just a bit of a dweeb.
Yeah, he is a dweeb, but
he's perfect at it.
Yeah, he's great. He's yeah. I mean, he plays it quite straight as Wayne Selinsky in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh yeah.
So it's great in seeing him in this, like really showing his comedy chops.
Yeah. Especially when he's doing the lawyer scenes in the second one.
Oh,
where he's their lawyer, and he's just like, I mainly do like tax stuff.
Yeah. When the prosecutor's like, he's like, I object. He's like, give me a break. We're both lawyers. It's just so pathetic. But yeah, yeah, he's great. Yeah, I mean, Ghostbusters 1. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and when you said it's low budget, I'm thinking like this is just being harsh for harsh sake, but the effects really do date.
They do.
When watching them on a big TV in 2021.
Yeah.
In like all its glory. Again, that's me nitpicking for nitpicking's sake. Like we've sung its praises. I have to say something negative.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's
it's a part of its time though.
It is. I mean, you could say that
I don't want them to George Lucas it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you could argue the same thing about A New Hope.
Yeah.
Obviously the special effects are better in that, but they're not. If you watched it back now compared to modern movies, they're not as great. So
controversially, on that topic, I feel like the special edition updating they did in '97 for the Star Wars original trilogy, I feel like some of those effects they're better obviously than the '77 versions, but some of the CGI is looking ropey as shit
now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which makes me, as a kid, I was like, obviously I didn't know the changes because I was only little when they came out.
Yeah.
The special edition, sorry. But then I've seen what it used to look like, and sometimes I'm just like, why don't you just keep it? It's just like it feels more natural. But again, that's just something that it's just because it's noticeable.
Yeah.
But it's not. Ghostbusters is not in any way a serious film. It's got some drama in it.
Yeah.
But for me to be going on about its at the time pretty good effects.
Yeah.
For how small the budget was, and how skeptical higher ups were about this formula working, which they thought it's just a sci-fi, but in the 80s, because everything was Star Wars back then, or Star Wars rip-off.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing a sci-fi comedy, they probably lick their lips and be like, oh, it's going to be about a parody of like Star Wars and Star Trek, and he was just like, no.
I mean, at that time as well, I mean, the 80s was one of the best decades overall for movies we've ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, all the major franchises were coming out in the same decade at the same time. A lot of them in the same year. So you've got Terminator, you've got Indiana Jones, you've got Star Wars, you've got well, I'm sure there's loads.
You didn't have to wait very long for your
Rocky,
next. You didn't have to wait very long for your next great movie.
Yeah,
honestly.
And these were just the franchises. You're also getting all these amazing Back to the Future. Yeah. All these amazing standalone films as well coming out in that decade.
Something you don't see these days.
So for a film to come along starring a bunch of unknowns, well, not unknowns, but non-Hollywood at the time. Saturday Night Live guys in this sort of low budget B-movie sci-fi comedy, amongst all that other stuff,
makes it even more impressive.
And for it to be the huge, like, global, massive hit that it is around the world, I think that's an outstanding achievement.
It is a testament to the writing, to just everything coming together.
Yeah.
And you know, it's beloved to this day by millions of people, and it's crazy how it did go into a hiatus for so long.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Ghostbusters 2 very shortly, we'll talk a little bit about the story. But yeah, it's just got so many classic moments, and it's the finale with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is like iconic in terms of
it is iconic
in terms of finales to films.
Yeah.
And when you break it down, if you were to write it down on paper,
sounds ridiculous.
That they manifest a giant marshmallow man, who is basically the antagonist for the film.
Yeah.
Because Gozer turns into it, doesn't he, she,
it?
Because it, yeah.
Yeah, Gozer, of course, being like wearing a leotard and looking with a David Bowie haircut.
Of course, is genderless.
Which is just, again, on paper, you think, oh yeah, we'll get this like Swedish model who doesn't speak English to dress up like David Bowie, have two demon dogs as pets,
and for them to
conjure up a massive marshmallow man to come and attack a skyscraper.
I think I just heard a movie exec having a heart attack.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you on acid right
now?
Now?
That or just like someone's checkbook closing, like no way is that getting made.
It's like, what?
But writing it down on paper is mental, and then when you watch it back, it's just great.
Yeah, but you know what? It works because of the characters and because of the
style of the movie as well.
And that's what makes I do genuinely think and believe, and this is why I think that other incarnations of Ghostbusters, such as the cartoons that didn't feature the original characters and that event that occurred in 2016, I think the reason that they don't work is because the heart of Ghostbusters, what makes it Ghostbusters, is the central characters. They are the key master, and the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
They are what makes it successful. I don't think without them, it would just be another one of those weird 80s B movies with dodgy special effects. Like the sort of with some questionable acting, like Master of the Universe or something. One of those. But it's because of the actors. It's because of Murray, Aykroyd, Ramis, Hudson, Weaver, and Moranis. I think those six hold, the glue that hold the whole film and the first two movies together in the first place. I mean, it's about their relationships, the character relationships, the banter.
They go through hardships like not having any money.
Yeah, exactly.
They basically live off like they just eat their last couple of dollars.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, well, we live in this, this old firehouse.
Yeah.
We started a business, and we're broke.
Yeah.
And there's like a real, story of like how they become a success, but everyone's like really skeptical.
Yeah.
Of course you would be, and then, they prove themselves, and none of that happens in the event.
Well, I don't want to talk about that, because if we start talking about that, it's going to get absolutely ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go off on a tangent about that.
No, because I feel like we're probably doing pretty well on this.
I think, to be honest with you, everyone rips on that. There's nothing we can say that hasn't already been said. So there's no point in moaning about it. But yeah, basically everything that they did in that film, is the opposite of what they did in the original, and that's why the original worked so well.
Because lovely,
you had 4. Yes, there was improvising, and yes, because they all come from comedy backgrounds, but they all had characters with specific personalities and character traits. And although they did a lot of ad-libbing, they stuck to their individual character traits,
which had defining traits. And we were watching a few videos prior to starting the podcast, and one of the points that were made, again, we'll finish talking about the event in 2016 pretty much right here, but their characters are their characters up until the point where the plot or the script just needs them to be dumb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, aren't 2 or 3 of them doctors?
Yeah.
So honestly, they're not going to be dumb.
Exactly.
They might be a bit like Spengler. They might just be a bit like kind of out of touch, but he's also funny.
Yes.
Because he just he turns it on his head. But these are just like.
But he's funny in his way.
Yeah.
He still maintains the fact that he's like the sort of quote unquote sensible, intelligent, logical one.
But he still cracks wise.
But he's still funny. Like I don't know if it's the first film when Annie Potts said to him, she's like, "Oh, so what's your hobby?" And he goes, "I collect spores, molds, and fungus." And then he just walks off. That's a great line.
Yeah.
But it's still keeping in character with the character of Spengler.
Yeah.
But that's just a really funny like a line that he says.
That adds to the character. Whereas this, with the other movie, it detracts because it just makes them stupid, or like you said, or zany, or
so you've got
just a bit like clueless.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that they need to get a laugh in the scene.
Like Venkman cracking jokes and one-liners and making fun of people, that works because that's his character. And then you've got Spengler making these sort of funny but deadly serious lines about science.
Yeah.
I had a slinky, but I straightened it. Things like that.
I had half a slinky.
Yeah.
Well, I did until I straightened it.
Yeah, and then you've got Ray like spouting off all this like technical mumbo jumbo. This was a class 5 phantasmal spasm spectre with a induced. And then you've got like Winston Zeddemore like making like observations and stuff, and that was really stupid. Just all that things, and that works because
they are all different.
Yeah, they're all different, and those are their characters and their character traits and their personalities, but they also work so well as a group, as an ensemble cast. Because it is an ensemble cast, really. I mean, I know people say Bill Murray's like the main character, but really, it's all 3. I think Spengler, Stantz, and Venkman are all the main characters. They all have their.
They all start at the same time, and we get to learn about them early on.
Yeah, so it's an ensemble piece. It's not a single lone hero story.
No. I feel like at the time it was. I know Bill Murray was probably the out of those 3 the most well known. But I feel like it's only really he's got that kind of role as being the main actor in it, only because he's gone on to be more successful.
Yeah.
Over time, I don't think it was because at the time he was. It's like, Bill Murray's going to be the main character. No, it's all 3 of them.
I don't think it was, because I don't think his filmography was that extensive before Ghostbusters. I think Ghostbusters is what launched him into being like a superstar.
A huge star.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look. I know this word gets thrown about so much these days, especially about films from around that period, because unfortunately, as much as it begrudges me to admit, we are that was a while ago now, and we are quite dare I say it, old.
What, 1984?
Old. What I'm getting at is, Liam.
Right.
I feel like that genuinely is a classic.
Oh yeah.
And what I'm saying is, I think when we were growing up, 80s films weren't classics. They were only like a 10-decade old. But nowadays, films from that era are starting to veer into being a classic.
Yeah. Well, in just under 3 years, that would be 40 years old.
Exactly.
So, for it to be still in the zeitgeist, even by a little prior to this film coming out, for it to still be in conversation, and then if you were to ask people, especially our age, but even people who are even older, the generations before and a couple of generations after, you'd just be like, oh, Ghostbusters? Classic.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, I don't think the same can be said for 2.
Well.
So I am very fresh off a rewatch, because I watched it just moments before we went to, like an hour or 2 hours before we went to see Afterlife.
So you've seen 2 Ghostbusters films
in one day
today. To be fair, I watched 1 and 2 back to back a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, I don't know even at this point whether it was better or worse than the last time I saw it. Ghostbusters 2. Because I can't remember exactly how I felt the last time, because it's probably been that long. It's probably been about 10 years since I saw 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it over to you. What are your thoughts? Because I feel like there's gonna be, first time ever on the podcast, there'll be maybe some friction.
I wouldn't say there's friction. I wouldn't say there's going to be friction, but I listen. This is something that has been a constant all my life. I've always thought this, and my mind hasn't changed, and it's always caused odd reactions from people. But I think Ghostbusters 2 is better.
What? What is that?
I know. I prefer Ghostbusters 2 to 1.
What?
I know. I'm sorry, listeners. Please don't turn off now. I know it's controversial, and I know it's a really unpopular opinion. Give us your unpopular opinion. You know that Radio 1 show? Never mind. But
I'm just flabbergasted. So
yeah, I know. But the thing is, I a bit like what you said about 1. I have a similar story, but with 2. I used to I don't know why it was 2, but for some reason my grandparents, who had loads of, they were big recorders. So
yes,
they had loads of films on VHS recorded off the telly.
Yeah.
They had more than actual videos. They just had literally a drawer full of these like old.
I'm pretty sure mine did the same thing. Yeah,
like the old Casio. Recordable tapes.
Long play Casio, so you can get a couple of movies.
Yeah, there'd be like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah,
And Ghostbusters 2, they had recorded along with another film on the same tape, and it was so. I actually saw Ghostbusters 2 first as a kid, and this is why I think I was influenced by, because I know for a fact that Ghostbusters 2 was marketed a lot more towards kids. They took out a lot of the profanity. They took out the smoking deliberately. Yeah. They also
like Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, they also, because of the success of the cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters, they also incorporated. They brought Slimer back. They incorporated a lot of that because they realised, quite to their surprise, because Ghostbusters 1 has got a lot of adult themes.
Oh yeah.
It's got a lot more swearing, smoking. It's got like sexual references to it. It's a much more adult film, and I think it was aimed, even though it was a PG. I think it was aimed. They thought it was going to be like a Blues Brothers,
like teens,
like an adult
adults.
comedy.
Yeah,
and it was so popular with kids they made the cartoon. The cartoon was what really changed things, and that's why they made 2 a bit more kid friendly, much more like a PG film. Whereas I feel like the first film was more like a 12, really.
12A.
So I used to watch it, and it, like you said, it was one of those films from my childhood that I watched over and over and over and over again. I think I'm not exaggerating when I say I've probably seen Ghostbusters 2 at least over 100 times.
100 times?
Well, yeah, because you know when you're a kid, you just watch the same films like every weekend.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
it's this weird.
If you
thing
do it for like
that kids
3-4 years, then...
yeah, they just 2, watch the
years.
same movies all the time. I want to watch Ghostbusters 2. I want to watch. And you're like, really, Ghostbusters 2 again? You know.
Especially when Ghostbusters 1 is so good.
Well, I listen. I agree with you. I'm not saying Ghostbusters 1 isn't great, but I just personally, I think Ghostbusters 2 is better. When I rewatched it the other night, I was watching Ghostbusters 2, and I had that beaming feeling that I had with Afterlife, where I'm watching it and I'm like, this makes me think of my childhood. It's like getting a nice warm hug. And also,
it's a comfort blanket of the movie.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just a weirdo, but I also was laughing more at Ghostbusters 2. And I know people say, I know that there's Ghostbusters 2 gets a lot of criticism. People say it's not as funny, it's not as good. But I for me, there's a lot of moments in Ghostbusters 2 and a lot of like one-liners and quotes that I think are genuinely really funny. And it just, I don't know, I just feel, all right, let me justify it. I think it's got a much better villain. I think Vigo is a much better villain than Gozer. He's scarier. He's more intimidating.
I mean, with Gozer, you don't actually see Gozer till pretty much the end of the movie. Yeah. And then it turns into a marshmallow man, which isn't scary at all.
Whereas Vigo is genuinely a bit scary, like especially when he's like turns into a monster at the end, and you know when he's like roaring and stuff in the painting. And the painting's really creepy and eerie. So
True.
I think Vigo's a much better villain. I think the storyline, I mean, all right, the River of Slime is a bit silly and for kids.
Let's not go there, but because Ghostbusters in itself is a silly idea.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
It's a silly kind of like we say B movie silly. So even when I thought I did think that when I was watching back.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, River of Slime. I'm just like, oh, it's a bit like, it's along the same lines. Like, a river of slime is making people angry. I mean, leads to love is the answer. Love is the real hero. Which, you know, in other stuff we've lambasted before.
Yeah, but it's Ghostbusters.
But it's Ghostbusters. Yeah. Exactly.
Cheesy.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't dismiss it just because of River of Slime.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. Yeah. I know that's one of the main. A lot of people criticise it for that.
Yeah, gripe by others. Yeah.
So I think, as I say, I think Vigo's a better villain. I think the storylines is better. That he wants to come back in life, but he's got to inhabit the body of a baby, and obviously Dana's got a baby now. I really like that. I like that her and Peter are like broken up, and I like that. And I like that. I really like the whole storyline where the Ghostbusters are like they're sort of like old news now. Like people have sort of got over it, and Ray and Winston are having to do like birthday parties and stuff.
See, with that, I just don't think that works because it's only been 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like it's too soon for the let's get the band back together. I feel like if they were to do that storyline, I think they should have waited until like, you know, later if they were making a sequel to like 10 years, or 15 years, you know, or should have been the idea for one later down the line. You know, like if they were like, well, we'll do a sequel, and then you know, for a third or later on down the line. I know. Back in the 80s, they weren't thinking to themselves, oh, I'm sure everyone will still love it back in 2010, 2015.
Yeah.
But it feels too soon. When I was watching it back, because I've watched one like loads, and then I just did need a real refresher on 2, and I was thinking it would still be in people's minds that this happened. You know, I know there's a few theories floating about there that that it didn't happen. You know, like they've got theories from 1, it's like they like that it's like a version of like purgatory or like hell or something. There's a few different, like fan theories. There's always fan theories. Yeah. But I just felt like it being only 5 years later, it felt a bit weird to be like, oh, they've led such different lives. I'm like, 5 years isn't too long, for them to say, if they were still doing it for maybe a year or 2 after. That's only 3 years that have been
I can see
broken
that.
up.
I can see that.
That would have worked for this movie.
Yes.
For Afterlife.
I can see that, but I don't know. I mean, again, as a kid, I didn't really think about that.
Of course.
I see what you mean, and it does. It
feels also a bit rushed.
It does seem weird that some characters in the film are still like saying that they don't believe in ghosts, or saying that they're calling the Ghostbusters frauds and stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't know. Maybe it's because in the first film, when because of Gozer and because that was happening, that the volume of ghosts was more, and then after they vanquished Gozer, the ghosts.
I think they referenced that.
And then because of the emergence of Vigo, that's when again that explains why all of a sudden the ghosts start reappearing again. But yeah, I really love Ghostbusters 2. I think it's a better film. I really enjoy it. I just find it fun. I love the I think the finale's better as well. I think the whole thing where they go to the Statue of Liberty and they play Lifting Me Higher and then they march through the streets. I mean, how is that more ridiculous than the giant marshmallow?
No, I'm not saying it is. Like, even when I was watching it, I was just like, this is just like classic Ghostbusters. It is a bit schlocky. It is B movie, but like that's that they lean into that instead of trying to be even more realistic.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's still the 80s.
But they're just going for it balls deep. They're just it's Ghostbusters. It's silly.
Yeah.
Let's go over the top. We went over the top in the first film. I don't think that's I think it's quite funny. What else happens in Ghostbusters 2? The Titanic turns up and all the ghosts come off it.
Mate, I was going to say about this.
I think that's funny.
One of the, and isn't it who's the actor?
Cheech Marin.
Cheech, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
better late than never.
Yeah.
I think that's hilarious. What's wrong with that?
I see. When I was watching it, I was just like, it's best not to think of it other than anything. Kind of not just kind of tongue in cheek, I guess. Best not to think of it any other way because it's like really morbid, like the woman's coat that turns into the dead ferrets.
Yeah,
I'm just like, probably best not to think about that in a serious way.
Yeah,
because just take it as a joke. Because in the serious way, it's just like,
yeah, exactly.
It's
just, I don't know. It's just something about 2. It makes me laugh and it gives me goosebumps in the sense of like it's like you're like, yeah, go on.
Yeah.
I like especially the bit with the Statue of Liberty when it's like smashes the museum.
That's museum,
cool. And they all swing down and I'm like, yeah, cool, go on, go Ghostbusters, and everyone's singing and and at the when Lewis, he like dresses up as a Ghostbuster and he's all like, I'm with you guys, and and then he's like, I did it, I'm a Ghostbuster, and I'm just like, this is great.
Yeah.
Do you know, as well,
feel good.
I do think as well, for Ghostbusters 2 as well, again, for me, it ticks all the boxes on how to make a decent sequel, in that you sort of do the same thing again, only change everything and make it completely different, which is basically what they do.
Yeah.
I think anyway.
So there are a lot of parallels between the 2 movies.
Yeah.
One of the only bits that I didn't quite like. Again, maybe I'm just taking it too seriously. is just the opening scene. You know, when the baby carriage is is just like rolling down the street, and then is being controlled by the slime or being, because it literally like weaves in and out of cars.
I'm thinking that it's like Vigo is like I'm thinking it's trying to get to the museum or something like that.
Yeah,
but I know what you mean. It just feels like a random set piece. Like, oh, Dana's going to have a baby, so let's have the carriage go haywire.
Oh, 100%. It's got nothing to do with the plot, but also it's the opening scene.
Yeah.
So it's like that's your hook for the Ghostbusters too.
Yeah.
You know, I was watching another YouTube video which was about, I think it was about the Eternals actually, and how it just has no opening hook for the movie.
Yeah.
And this as an opening hook for Ghostbusters 2, after the success of Ghostbusters, felt really quite lackluster.
Yeah.
Just kind of, like you said, it is just a set piece for set piece sake.
Yeah.
They were like, they probably fleshed out that obviously, you know, Dana will have a kid.
Yeah.
And then they were just like, oh yeah, for the opening scene, you know, baby carriages, they roll when on a hill. You know, why don't we just have it have a mind of its own and like almost, you know, weave through New York traffic, and because it just like turns corners like up against cars and then like decides to stop in the middle of the road and stuff, and then it just cuts to the title sequence of like Ghostbusters 2, and you're just like, all right.
Yeah,
it's a bit weak.
Yeah, I can see that. It's not as strong as opening, obviously, as the library from one. I totally see that. Maybe they just thought, look, it's Ghostbusters 2. People, we don't need to introduce the characters here, so let's just do something that's going to be to do with the plot, you know, later.
Loosely, because it literally just gets touched by a bit of slime.
You know, or we need to establish that Dana's got a baby now, so let's do something with the carriage, something like that. Yeah.
I can see why you like Ghostbusters 2, even with it, because it's an emotional connection.
Yeah.
There were bits that I was laughing, mainly at Spangler in this one, where he just his mannerisms and his little quips when, you know, when Dana goes to see him early on, and he's conducting that test where he's testing testing whether people's emotions change the physicality of like their surroundings.
Yeah.
And basically, he's like doing the tests, and then like in the last bit of conversation with Dana, when she's talking about Venkman, you can see his brain is like, I'm gonna like test you as well. You know,
doesn't
like,
he scan her? Yeah, she's not looking. Yeah.
he feeds her a line to see her reaction, and then like gets the spectrometer out, and I'm just like he was great in both of these movies.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I have to say this, and this is another reason why I really love 2, and that is Peter McNichol as Janosch.
Oh yeah, of course.
For me, he nearly steals that film.
He does,
because he is hilarious.
He's great.
Everything he says, I think, is hilarious. There's 2 key moments where I think he's so funny, and it's so subtle as well. One is right at the start when he's just walking around the museum. He's just going around all the people,
checking the art,
and
the restoration.
He goes to one where he goes, "Everything you are doing is bad. I want you to know this."
Yeah.
And then there's another bit where, and it's gonna be hard.
That's like the first person he talks to.
Yeah,
he like comes in.
It's like his opening line, I think.
Yeah, he looks. He's just like, "Oh my goodness, everything you're doing is wrong."
Yeah,
it's just like...
And there's another bit, and it's gonna be hard when you're listening to this to imagine. But do you know what? I hadn't actually noticed it before, even though I've seen this film over 100 times.
Yeah.
But it's because it's so quick and so subtle. And there's a bit where I think it's towards the end. It's in the museum. He's sat in the circle of candles.
Yeah.
Vigo's there. He's talking to Vigo, and I can't remember exactly the line, but I think he reaches his arms up above his head. And he says, like, you know, says something along the lines of, "Yes, command me, my lord. Tell me what to do." And he does this very subtle thing where whilst he's still got his hands up in the air. So imagine this if you can, listeners. He's just looking up at Vigo, and he just sort of goes like that.
Just like looks at his watch.
Just very quickly, subtly looks at his watch and just gives a sort of like a,
come on, here we go.
Any minute now would be great kind of look. It's like, oh yeah, but he's still trying to be.
Still trying to be like, oh, I'm so loyal.
Yeah, and I think that's so. That just I rewound it, watched it again because it really cracked me up.
It's that classic like late 80s, early 90s kind of emotive comedy that comes through. It does come through in the first one, but there's definitely quite a bit of it in the second one.
He reminds me of Boris from GoldenEye.
Yeah.
It's he is Vigo. You are like the buzzing of flies to him. just a great. So many great funny lines, but there's other great lines in 2 that I think are great. Like when they're talking about the slime and Venkman's like, you're not sleeping with it, are you, Ray? And Ray just sort of looks at Spengler, and Spengler's just does a sort of awkward face, and it's like, oh.
I missed that not in this rewatch, but previous rewatches. I was just like, what?
Yeah, you don't get it as a kid. You don't understand what that means. No, but it's so funny. Yeah.
The reintroduction of them as the Ghostbusters in the courtroom is really cool.
I love that. I love that. That's a great scene all round. I can't remember the guy's name who plays the judge. Oh, Harris Yulin.
There, he's fantastic. Yeah. He's a great like antagonistic character.
Yeah.
In pretty much anything he plays. But especially in this, he really goes chew scenery. Goes to chews the scenery up when he's doing the verdict. In that scene where he's showing anger and the slime is reacting to it.
Yeah.
So much so I didn't remember it being so. And over the top's not like a bad word for it, but it is over the top, but in a good way. And then you see the reaction of the slime, and they're just like, oh shit, and they know something's going to happen. And I don't know where the 2 ghosts come from. They come from inside the slime. Is that about right? Because it explodes and they come out of the slime.
Yeah, I think they're manifested from the slime.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. It is a courthouse, so maybe it used to be a prison or something.
Well, the judge says that he put them away.
Them to death. So maybe they're
because they literally when they first appear they're on electric chairs, aren't they? And then they're just
and then that scene immediately is preceded by the montage of them getting back together, which I love.
Taking back control, if you want to listen to the song.
And listen, I again, I know that this is unpopular, but I really like the Run DMC remix of the theme song. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, that one, yeah. No, I think in that montage they use a different song.
A different song, right? Well, yeah, but I think the Run DMC song is like maybe the end credits song or something.
Yeah. Oh,
it's definitely got rapping over the top.
Yeah, that's right.
80s old school rapping.
Like, bit slower than today's stuff.
But oh yeah, man. Look, I'm sorry to. I'm sorry out there. I'm sorry to all the fans out there, but for me, Ghostbusters 2 better than 1.
No, I've got to stick to
that, and that's fine. I know that I'm in the minority, and I'm on the odd one out here.
I think the effects are better.
Yep.
Because I mean, they only had a very limited amount of time, especially for how long you probably give for such effects in the first one. And then obviously when you're coming around to a sequel, bigger and better is just kind of like it's kind of the mandate, if you will, isn't it? So, and I mean like the shots of the stereotypical now, it's a trope of the franchise itself is you get to the last act, you get to Act 3, and all hell lets loose, and the ghosts start roaming about. And that particular scene and those particular shots in the second one, like you said with the Titanic and the it's all again. It's all practical effects.
Yeah.
One of the only CGI effects in it, which I think is like it was bad for the time and it's bad now, is the bath. You know when
Yeah.
Dana's trying to give her son a bath, and the pink slime starts coming through. That's all fine. That's all
Yeah.
practical. And then they use like one CGI
Yeah,
shot of
where
it all.
tries to grab her.
Yeah, and again, I think just watching a YouTube video somewhere, they talking about it. The visual effects team, that is, they were just like, we weren't happy with it then. We're not happy with it now. It's just we just kind of we had a deadline and it was done and that was it, you know. But it's other than that, like I said, the other shots where, you know, ghosts are flying around New York and it's in different situations is again is I wouldn't say better in concept, but like execution better.
Yeah.
You know, like just the effects hold up a lot better watching it back today.
I think the overall takeaway from 2 is that obviously near to no one thinks that it's better than 1 like I do, but I think that you can't argue with the fact that that 2 compared to a hell of a lot of other sequels out there, you can't argue the fact that 2 is a solid sequel. You might not think it's as good as 1. You might not think that it has doesn't have the magic of 1 or whatever. I personally think it does, but a lot of people don't. But you can't argue that it's not a solid sequel. It does what it says on the tin. It's, you know, it's got all the original cast. It's got fun jokes. I think it works both as a kids film and can also be enjoyed by adults. It has a lot of fan service. I think I think if I was Ivan Reitman at the time, after the sort of reception of the sort of frosty reception of 2, I'd have just been like, well, you know, what did you want?
Yeah.
We gave you what you asked for. We gave you a sequel. We got all the original cast back. We made it more kid friendly so that the studio makes more money because you get more kids wanting to come and see it. So you've got bigger box office appeal. We've tried to retain the sort of we got the chemistry from the original actors. We've tried to give the characters a bit more depth and a bit of development. And we tried to make a film that's kind of similar to the first one, but also slightly different. The stakes are different, the villain's different, the storyline's different, but the sort of the 3 acts it's the same formula. You know, the first act is about them establishing what they're doing. Second act is them getting back together and like becoming Ghostbusters again. And then obviously, as you just said, the third act is like the big finale where they have to go. What more do you want from a sequel? I think, you know, I've never understood why the hate. Maybe hate's a strong word, but I've never understood why people think, oh yeah, Ghostbusters 2 such a letdown. How is it a letdown?
I'm just in the camp that it does just miss something extra.
Yeah.
Compared to the original.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it a bad film.
No.
I mean, it is a good film, and it's just this is just for me personally. I feel like I might be in the majority. Probably am.
Definitely are.
But
like the 99%
yes.
majority.
I just think there is just like something extra. Maybe even the only real difference is that the original was original.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
yes, exactly.
that in itself is an X factor of films.
Yes.
If it is the original, you know, good, bad, great, excellent, terrible, it's still the original.
Yeah.
So I think like that it maybe has got its claws in this franchise. Why people are like, oh, 2, it is more like an eye roll. It's not like, I don't think people are like, oh, it's an absolutely awful movie. I feel like people are just like, they have that in their mind that it's not the original, and the original is so beloved that you sometimes just can't recreate that.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, you know, I mean, it's not a great comparison because this was pretty poor, but it's like Blues Brothers 2000 when they made that. It was doomed to fail from the start
100%.
because John Belushi wasn't in it. It wasn't the Blues Brothers. It was never gonna be as good.
A film that should never have been made.
But with that, no one was really asking for a Blues Brothers sequel.
No.
After John Belushi passed away.
No.
No one. They didn't need to make it, but it was doomed to fail from the start. And I feel like maybe that was the case with 2. I just think that they made an effort to appeal to everyone with that film, and obviously that didn't work. You know, maybe. Could it have had less slime? Maybe. Could it have had more profanity and smoking like the first film? A bit more adult humour? Yeah, possibly. But other than that, I can't see what major changes they could have made to make it.
I don't think that would have made. I don't think it made it. I don't think any of those changes would have made it any better.
Well, neither do I.
And it wouldn't have made the film any more money. So probably would have made it less.
Yeah.
So, you know, you just got to have that balance, don't you, really?
Yeah.
Especially when things between the first and second changed the direction slightly of the original vision. Like you said, it's a little bit more aimed towards kids. So that does affect things. I don't think for the worse in this case, but it does deviate a little bit, and you know, that's okay because you know it still retains the DNA of Ghostbusters, in my mind.
Exactly.
And another film that retains the DNA of Ghostbusters is this movie.
Oh, that was a really nice hook there you just did.
The segue was done perfectly.
It was indeed. Have you thought that up?
No, not even slightly. That just came to me.
I'm very impressed with that, Liam.
Nice, thank you very much.
Very lovely.
I'm a professional now. So I'm definitely not. But this film is different to the first two.
Yeah.
It's different in a good way. That's not good. It's without the question mark. It is good in a good way. Yeah. My expectations were I wouldn't say middling. I'd just say I was cautiously optimistic. I think you said that as we were going in,
That's
really,
right.
as we were sitting down. You were like, I'm cautiously optimistic. And it's hard when you're cautiously optimistic because, you know, I'd say 8 out of 10 times when cautiously optimistic these days, I'm probably let down when I leave the cinema.
Nowadays, I'm deliberately pessimistic so that if it is good, I'm pleasantly surprised.
But this one is we were cautiously optimistic, and yeah, I think this film is.
Well, sorry to interject here, but I said the reason we were cautiously optimistic is for all the right reasons.
Yes.
In that this was written and directed by Jason Reitman, Ivan Reitman's son. We knew for a fact that the original cast were reprising their roles and not just making
nonsensical cameos
as different people.
Last time we mentioned the event, 2016.
So we sort of not wouldn't say knew, but we had a feeling going in that this was going to be, if anything, this was going to be respectable.
Yes.
Of the older films.
Oh, 100%.
And that, for me, is the reason why I was cautiously optimistic, because I genuinely felt like this was in the right hands.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, it was. It'd been, it'd been incubated by the right people. So, and I mean, that's not to say that having fresh takes on things can always be bad. It's just that recent evidence would say it's probably not had a great track record. Say if you had a popular franchise, we could reel off a few that in the end you think, well, that wasn't good. That could have gone better. So this one was, I didn't know, and obviously it come out through various social media means that the original 3 were going to be in it. I didn't even know Sigourney Weaver was going to be. I mean, she's in it, but she's not in it. I didn't even know that, to be fair. And the trailers were action heavy, not too spoilerific, but you did know that it would touch upon the original story. Mm-hmm. So that's good to have a teaser for what it's all about.
Yeah.
But having, God, there's probably we're probably a broken record by this point saying that trailers are just spoilers.
God, they are though.
Yeah.
Sorry, they're flipping ridiculous.
Mm.
Sometimes a trailer's like 3 minutes long and it gives away the whole film.
Mm.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And
this one didn't.
No, not at all. And I mean, there was just a few. There was probably like 2 main trailers. And then you don't get much from a poster these days. So it's it's good to go in semi-blind to what's going to go on in terms of the main storyline of the plot. But it started off and it just kept respectfully nodding to the original. It had what you expect when I say that. It had, it has the original car, and it has it had a shot of like a Twinkie in a drawer, and it had it did have everything. It had fan service, but like the thin line between overdoing it and doing it right, it was on the correct side of the line.
Case in point of being on the wrong side of the line is Jurassic World.
Oh yeah, 100%.
With the constant, here are the goggles.
Yes.
Here's the car.
Mm.
Here's the original main facility.
Mm.
Here here's the original T-Rex.
You might say that we have just said basically the same thing there, but
it works in this film
because
they do it well.
Oh, it works in this film.
Yeah.
It works. There wasn't one time where I was like, oh, that's a bit forced.
Yeah, they've just thrown that in for nostalgia.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for Spengler to have the technology. He's the man who created the technology.
Yes,
he's the one who once they finish Ghostbusting and he's still doing it, it makes sense for him to have the car. He's the scientist of the group. Of course, he's going to have the proton packs and the traps.
Yeah.
But in, like you said, in Jurassic World, there's no need for those bits.
No.
I might have just already had an example of just throwing in something that was in the movies, but that was amongst where it's like, oh, there's a Twinkie in the drawer, and it's a little bit, you might think, oh, there's no point in having that shot. It's just that was just a tiny nod in between every other bit making sense for you to have those things that bring up the nostalgia. You knew there was going to be a lot of that in the movie.
Yeah.
That is one thing you did get from the trailers, is that they are using the nostalgia, but still, to the story, it does just make sense.
It does, but and also I think with this film
it's a continuation of the story.
Yeah.
As well. So it's not like Jurassic World where they basically do a reboot.
It's a reboot, but and all the nostalgia things they throw in not really have anything to do with the main plot of the film. They're just there purely for nostalgia. Whereas with this, everything was to do with the storyline because it was a direct continuation of one, basically. But I also think it really worked in this film. Like, I actually, I'm sure one of my other co-presenters will disagree with this. But I really like the sort of storyline about the kids moving to a new town and sort of finding their feet and stuff, because it was like it was like its own separate movie with its own separate story, whilst at the same time being a direct continuation of one and having all these quote unquote nostalgia moments, but they were all part of the story and therefore worked. They weren't just there just to say, oh look, here's a proton pack, oh look, here's a trap, oh look, here's one of the original uniforms, here's the car. It felt very organic.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Like they were discovering these things,
like,
and then they used them.
Yeah, it's great, and it starts off. This is a good example of a opening hook to a movie. Like this, compared to the opening hook for the Ghostbusters 2. This one was like action sequence, massive setup for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And obviously from here on we'll have spoilers for this film.
Yeah, so we should probably say now, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Stop listening now if you haven't seen Afterlife yet.
And then put this back on the drive back from the cinema.
Yeah, exactly. We've done 1 and 2. We're about to delve into the world of the Afterlife.
Yeah.
From here on.
So Spengler dies at the very beginning of the movie.
Spoilers? Jesus Christ! No, we did warn you.
I thought I'd open the traps really quickly there, just as soon as we said. But yeah, so you see this car driving from a mountain, and it's got the same sky beam, from the original movie. But they did sky beams before. Sky beams were
the norm.
That were commonplace for
the original
action.
sky beam.
Yeah, the original sky beam.
Yeah.
Every other movie is just copying Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and good chase scene. You can kind of just about tell what's going on. You just have the same visuals. They're so recognizable from the first film that you're instantly transported, and you're instantly aware of this being a connection to the first movie.
I also really enjoyed the reveal, if you want, because I don't know about you, but I didn't realise that this was supposed to be Spengler. I only really noticed because they don't show him directly; they just sort of show sort of shadowed silhouettes. But I sort of realised, I was like, "Oh, hang on a minute, this is Spengler, isn't it?" And because you could tell from like the hairline.
Oh yeah.
And I really liked that. I thought that was a really clever.
It's a classy way of doing
nod. Yeah, and I
wish other films had taken note.
And it's a great way of explaining, sadly, Harold Ramis's absence due to his untimely death.
Yeah.
By well, when you say it out loud, it sounds disrespectful, killing him off at the start, but it's not, because they make it part of the film.
They make it part of the film. They make it part of the story.
Intricate part of the storyline.
He's very important to the movie, and
his presence is felt throughout the whole film.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So then we cut to the family. His daughter and her now 2 children, 2 young kids, 12 and I want to say 15.
Yeah.
So that's Phoebe and Trevor. Yeah, got it. And I know this sounds cliche, but she is her own character, but she is very much a stand-in for Spengler
Yeah.
is Phoebe.
Yeah.
Because she wears the same glasses.
Yeah.
But she in herself is like you can kind of get it. It doesn't feel as forced as I first thought it would be.
Yes, same.
Seeing the trailers, it wasn't that I was adverse to having someone who's like their relative. It's that is a thing. But from recent history of children in those type of roles, the track record isn't great. Usually they're just annoying. And I don't think she was at all.
No, I thought she was.
She was great.
A compelling protagonist. Surprisingly.
And having a 12-year-old as the protagonist is quite a departure from the rest of the series, obviously.
Yeah.
And quite a risk, because it's just like, well, I think a lot of people who are seeing this movie are people who are around our age, who have nostalgia for Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I do think kids will go and see this, or they will want to see it because they do have a child in it.
Yes.
They do have children in it, and obviously Ghostbusters is so well known that even they'll learn about it some way. Yeah.
And there are quite obvious, I think, similarities to Stranger Things, which I think is fine, because that's a great way of appealing to a new audience.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that.
That's it. That's a comparison, even without just making it about Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah. I mean, exactly.
Yeah, I know he's in Stranger Things.
Yeah.
But he doesn't wear. He's not just Mike.
No.
Again.
No, he's not. He's a different person.
Yeah. Which is a hard thing to do, especially when you are like. So we're going to cast you in a very similar role.
Yeah.
But it has to be a difference in character, a difference in perspective. Yeah. It was a little bit like. Again, beforehand, my kind of prejudice towards the film beforehand was, Finn Wolfhard's in it. They're just trying to cash in on that Stranger Things, and he's in it and he'll play the role very similar to how he does in that. So, but he did well in differentiating Trevor and Mike.
I agree, and what you said about having the main characters of this film as being the kids, and how that's such a departure. I mean, the whole film's a departure.
Oh,
because,
100%.
For starters, it's set in a small town in Oklahoma, as opposed to in New York City.
Yeah.
Which is so synonymous with Ghostbusters, almost as much as Spider-Man is.
Of course.
And the fact that it's not all about the original cast, and I really like that. I think that really worked. I think it was a great idea, because if you did set it in New York again, and then I think you can very easily stray into it's just a remake of one that isn't as good.
It's just retreading the same ground for a third time.
But somehow it worked as a standalone film, and as a soft reboot, if you like, and as a third installment.
Honestly, I
mean, how rare is that to achieve all three of those?
I was very skeptical prior to my cautious optimism, just because having such a difference in setting can destabilize a movie. Case in point for me personally is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah.
because New York, like we just said, is synonymous with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And we were at number 2 of his MCU movies, where he hasn't really been Spider-Man in New York.
He's just been Spider-Man in high school.
Yeah. So, it's a little bit, for me, I was just like, oh, this is another film where they're making Spider-Man not be in New York.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you're trying to do new things, I'm okay with you trying, but I don't think they just quite pulled it off. Spoilers for the MCU podcast. Spider-Man month starting on the 1st of December. So, but yeah, I feel like at first I was like the setting not being New York. I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah.
Again, I've been burnt too many times.
I know.
That just made me think, oh no. But the more we saw of this film, the more the setting is like there's the high school where she goes to, there's the town centre, which again does kind of look a bit Stranger Things, and then like their house, and then there's the mine, and then that's it really in terms of like locales in this whole movie, which is kind of crazy, to have such a limited set of places for things to happen in this movie, but still be so very interesting.
I agree.
Because
sometimes simplicity is best.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't need a huge
sprawling city.
Yeah. Or as in the case with Far From Home,
Europe.
You don't need the whole of Europe, multiple different cities. Just go somewhere else. You want to set the film in Paris, just set the film in Paris. Or whatever. Call it Spider-Man, Viva la
Baguette.
Yeah, whatever. Marie the Baguettes. But yeah, no. Do you know what? This is it, Liam. You hit the nail on the head once again. I surprisingly, I agree with everything you said. Again, it's cautious optimism and slight skepticism. But then, literally scene by scene, with this film, there was no dips. It was just every scene I was like, it's working. And I was like, okay, I can get why understand why this is set in a small town and not in New York. I can understand why the kids are the main protagonists. I quite like I quite like their characters. I think Podcast almost was on the verge of being annoying.
Yes.
But for me, just avoided it because he was quite funny.
Yes.
He did provide a lot of comic relief.
I know it's kind of I don't know if it's ironic, but I know it's a bit on the nose that we're talking about a character called Podcast
whilst doing a podcast.
On a podcast.
Yeah.
A little bead of sweat came when I saw, this guy's called Podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, we're going to have to mention that
on a podcast. Are they going to take the piss out of people who do podcasts? Yeah,
I was just like, here we go, getting attacked.
Yeah.
No, but I was just like, it is a bit terrible. I know he calls himself that name.
Yeah.
It's not like, everyone calls me Podcast because I do podcast. He just did it to himself.
Yeah.
Which I found quite funny.
Yes.
But I also did think like, calling a character a name because it's their one character trait. I hate that when that happens in films.
Yes, agreed.
So I was just like, am I gonna have to absolutely murder?
It was a little bit cliche.
It was quite cliche.
To the actor and the film's credit, he was funny and endearing enough.
Yeah, turned it around.
That by the end of the film, I wasn't bothered.
No.
I was just like, he's Podcast.
Yeah. So at the beginning I was like, no, I'm gonna have to go all in on how this is really annoying and how he's really annoying and but no, we don't have to because I thought he was a good character.
And another thing this film did well, I feel, is and this is something that so many films like this try to do, where they make a sequel or a a reboot of an old popular franchise. But this film, where I think this film was successful and others have failed so miserably, was introducing a potential new team to carry the torch. I feel like this one did it quite well.
Usually, I reject it wholesale.
Exactly.
Usually in movies, I don't want to see a sequel with those who you forced
I'm all
put
for
the
it
torch
now. I'm all
to.
for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you know what? This is exactly what the first Ghostbusters was like. They're all sort of the same in that I don't know, they're misfits, outcasts, but yet they're all quite different. They've got different personalities, different traits. I can see them becoming the Ghostbusters in the future. You know, I like, you know, you've got Phoebe, you've got Phoebe, Trevor, you've got a podcast, and you've got Lucky, who's the sheriff's daughter.
Yep.
Who obviously Trev's got a bit of a crush on. So I'm thinking, yeah, I can see this working.
Yeah.
This is is a film. If you're listening, you know, Hollywood executives / filmmakers, which I'm sure that they do, because who doesn't listen to Two Reels podcast? That is how you do a successful handing over the torch film. For me, that is how you do it.
This is now the blueprint.
This is the blueprint. You are respectful of the original films. You don't shit on them. You don't like you don't accuse them. Oh, they're problematic because they use use swear words or whatever. You don't shit on them. You're respectful of them, and you balance. It's a perfect balance of fan service and nostalgia without it just being all fan service and nostalgia, whilst at the same time introducing new characters in a new setting and leaving it, I would say, somewhat open but not entirely certain that they're going to go on to be the new Ghostbusters.
That's true.
In the future.
There is not to skip right to the end but the second post-credit scene, which I hope people stayed for, but you probably might not have because you were thinking it's not a Marvel film. I can see a lot of people, because people in our audience, a lot of people left.
Yeah.
So after the original one where it's Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver, so the second one basically, again, it even continued it's been left open, but you don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
It even did more.
Yeah.
Which I really liked.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, although they threw up a new logo at the end for like a second, which I thought was kind of like something's coming, but we don't want you to look into it too much. Yeah. They threw up a new logo after the post-credit scene where Annie Potts' character is talking to Ernie Hudson, and it was like a scene that I felt like the scene was from a different movie, but it was also from this one.
I know what
it had a weird kind of. She's chatting to him, but he's also. It feels like an interview, and he's you know, even though we've only seen his character in the finale to the film, it's like he was in the thing the whole time, and he's just like quite nonchalant in the.
I thought maybe that scene.
Maybe it's from
was supposed to be earlier in the film, and they cut it.
Yeah, I feel like either that, or I feel like it's from a spin-off that they're making, because it did have a different vibe.
Yeah.
But you know, I liked it. Actually, I loved it because you saw the car pulling into the firehouse again. That was cool.
Yep.
And his character is like, I've always been a Ghostbuster, you know, like I've been like a businessman for like XYZ, but I'm always a Ghostbuster.
Yeah.
And then he's in the firehouse and he like brings the car.
I mean,
classic.
There's loads of potential threads of what that could mean. I mean, for me, again, this might be controversial, Liam, but I don't I don't know if I want to see another film with the original team.
I feel like that's closed now.
Because I think Afterlife was a perfect farewell for them. It was it felt like this is the end of their chapter. What I would like to see is I'd like to see the new team, the kids team, relocate to New York, and like maybe Winston becomes like their benefactor.
He's their Bosley.
Yes, he's their So he rebuilds the fire
Morning,
station.
Busters.
Yeah.
Morning, Ernie.
Yeah.
Call him by his actor's name.
Yeah. I mean, I hope they don't do that.
No, don't.
Mate, that's what I'd like to see because again, I think you could do that. You could do. So it's like a sequel to Afterlife, but also it's like a fourth installment, whilst maintaining the, the overall timeline of all the films.
Yes.
So that's what. Anyway, we've massively jumped the gun here.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
so in the first act, we're introduced to Paul Rudd's character. He's the summer school teacher.
His character's called Paul Rudd.
Yes.
As played by Paul.
I think it's his name. His name's like.
It's like Gary
Gooberson.
Gooberson, yeah.
Yeah.
Which
is just so funny, and so he plays Gary Gooberson, and he's like a scientist in himself who deals with earthquakes and such, and the town just so happens to be having them daily. And then through the eyes of Phoebe, we she learns more about the history of the house that they've been given, that they live in, and more about her grandfather. She is guided by his ghost, which you don't see in physical form for 90% of the film. So yeah, and there's just a lot of you're kind of going on her journey, for especially the beginning. The end of the first act and second is a lot of discovery about what's been happening and about like what brought Spengler to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's you're along for the ride at this point. You're just
entirely.
They've just got you hooked because the whole time I was just like, I want to know more. There was no point where I was like, oh, this is dragging on, or that was a bit rubbish, or the whole time it was like, oh, there's a nice little reveal here, nice little reveal there, and just kept going all the way to the end, with the two kind of side by side stories that are happening in those first two acts with the two children, with Trevor seeing one of the devil dogs. I keep calling them devil dogs. What are they actually called?
I've no idea.
They're just the creatures.
Well, they're the gatekeeper and the keymaster.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they.
No, I don't know why I called them that.
Devil dogs. People, you know what we're talking about.
If you've seen the first one, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I feel like they did a really good homage to the original.
Yeah.
Where they had real practical effects.
Yes.
With a mix of like CGI as well.
The dog in the Walmart.
It was so spot on.
Yeah.
To the original.
I couldn't agree more. I noticed that too.
They moved the same way. They
reminded me of
the
the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way they use like the same
actual practicals
as the original Star Wars.
Yes, spot on like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and because it is a continuation, at first I was thinking, like how are they going to link it to what happened in New York? Because it is the same. It's kind of a little bit Force Awakens in the fact that it is the same. It is the same but bigger set pieces.
Yes.
Compared to the original, but I think they did it in a fantastic way. That it's the same guy who built the building with the steel that is a conductor for this psychic happenings is the guy who built this mining town for that steel for the building. And there's also a temple in this mine because he worships this the god of the first one, Gozer. So thought it was a good connection. And I did like how they had like the years in the temple.
Yeah.
And you couldn't quite see the next number.
It was like 21 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I thought it was quite good.
Yeah.
The way that they pieced it together was not forced whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because it could just be something that we are all too familiar with. The retroactive retconning. Oh, it was just this person all along.
Yeah.
It could so easily have fallen into that category.
Yeah.
There was so much potential for them to just be like, oh, remember the bit of the first one? No, it was this person all along. Oh, it was this all along. Actually, Gozer was actually just like a slave to this god.
To this
who's actually
villain that
who's actually the big bad.
Invented.
Yeah. They could have gone down that route, and you know what, they didn't, and good on them, because honestly, it seems like a get out of jail free card for a screenwriter these days.
Yeah.
That is just like, oh, I can't make a good, compelling reason to go back to the lands and people that we've already, we already know and love. And,
yeah.
They need a new obstacle. And honestly, the retroactive retconning of so many franchises. Again, I'll ask the question later on: is this the best nostalgia sequel to come out? It's the other nostalgia sequels just seem to be like that's the go-to, is just to shoehorn something in.
Yeah.
Look at Star Wars, Jurassic World.
Yeah.
It's the playbook is do exactly that, but then just have something that was there all along.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, the playbook for the nostalgia sequel seems to be remake the first film whilst making it like canonical, but just nowhere near as good.
And then, if we're gonna make any more, just do a Last Jedi, shit the bed.
Whereas this film feels more like a sequel rather than a remake. But is actually good.
Yeah.
with new characters who are actually compelling,
interesting and
they
are new. I said that Phoebe is like Spengler because she does, obviously she's a scientist, and well, I say she's not a scientist technically, but she's into it, but and then that is kind of where the similarities end.
I mean, I must admit, I can see, whilst they are different, I can see how they are like kind of supposed to be somewhat similar to the original team.
Yeah.
So it's very obvious that Phoebe is
slight
Spengler.
Surrogates for the individual.
Podcast is obviously Ray.
Yeah.
I think Trevor is Venkman.
Well, they have that bit where they genuinely meet up,
and then obviously Lucky, being that she's like the non-scientist one, her father's the chief of police. She's obviously supposed to be the Winston, I'm guessing, just based on the fact that that she's sort of an outsider at first, but then joins the team later.
Yeah.
So I can see the comparisons, but it's done in a very subtle way.
Yeah.
While still making them original, interesting characters with their own unique personalities.
And what they could have done, again, if they'd followed previous blueprints on nostalgia sequels, is just have a 1-for-1 recast, but it's just different people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And honestly, like if that had happened, I think I would have just switched off.
Yeah.
You know, because I've seen it all before.
Yeah.
But they did some groundwork with the characters, and it really did pay off. And you know, the mother in it as well. She was good because she was such a flawed character.
Yeah.
She
really
she's
well written.
Broke. Always on the wines, which is
she's quite sassy.
She's
not just your stereotypical mum, like, make sure you're back before 9, you guys.
Yeah, no, she's swearing when appropriate.
Yeah, she's a very relatable, realistic mum, as opposed to a movie mum.
A very realistic
like in a
mum.
Penny, who's all like, oh, I baked you a pie.
Yeah.
Hey, where are you? Where you guys gone?
Yeah.
She was.
Can't believe you're out after 9 and didn't tell me where you were. Where?
She becomes part of the
does become part of the team after becoming the gatekeeper.
I mean, it's not a perfect movie.
No.
It does, for me, there was a few little like niggles here and there where I thought this isn't. I didn't think anything was bad, but there was a few things where I was on the fence about, and I think it's only fair that we highlight them.
Yeah.
Rather than just going on about how great it was. So, like, for me, one thing I didn't like, and this is a personal thing, so, a lot of people probably did like this. I didn't like how little they referenced 2. It was like 2 didn't even exist.
Yeah, I know.
It's...
And as the number 1 fan of Ghostbusters 2, when I was thinking... When you were explaining that you are the number 1 Ghostbusters 2 fan, I was thinking, well, they fucking absolutely ignored that movie. They did,
but again, it's like, well, why? You don't need to. It's not like it's not like a terrible. It's not like X-Men Origins Wolverine, or like it doesn't need to be ignored.
No,
what happened. It's canon. Like that. Like when they're watching the YouTube videos and stuff, and it's like Ghostbusters 1984, and it's all like. Okay, but what about 1989 when the whole New York Museum of Art was covered in a bubble of
goo
and all
slime.
these, and the Titanic turned up
the Statue of Liberty.
The Statue of Liberty walked through the streets. How are you not? Like when Paul Rudd, as played by Paul Rudd, is referencing. Oh, don't you guys remember what happened in New York? The big Marshmallow Man. What about what happened in New York 5 years after that?
Honestly, the Statue of Liberty walking is probably even more weird than a giant marshmallow man.
I wouldn't say it's more weird, but it's a more memorable event.
Oh yeah, because it's the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Like,
so I didn't.
It was like in the last shot of the movie, when the credits roll, it's just like laying in the street.
Yeah.
I'd be like. What are we going to do with the Statue of Liberty?
Yeah,
that would have been amazing if they had done, because they showed the again, this is right at the end of the movie. Apologies, straight to the end. But they showed the car driving across the bridge. I'm not sure which one.
Yeah.
Would have been great if it was like they then went to like a wide shot of like New York.
Yeah.
Like from out at sea, where you can see everything.
Yeah.
And the Statue of Liberty's still not there.
Yes. That would have been great.
That would have been
Although
quality.
I think there is a bit at the end of 2 when they're back on Liberty Island and they're given a key to the city and the statue's back.
Oh, okay.
But even just a shot of it.
Yeah.
Or something. Or maybe it's still there, but like the torch is broken.
Yeah.
I just wanted
it's got like a dent in it or something.
Acknowledgement. And because this story is so much a continuation of 1, it felt like it was a direct sequel to 1 as if 2 never happened, rather than the third part of a trilogy.
Yeah.
And I don't, as a fan of 2, I don't like that. So, but that's just a minor thing.
I think there is a bit of it where Lucky and Trevor's kind of story is still a bit by the book, kind of teenage puppy love. I don't really mind it, but it was kind of, for me, in my mind, at some points it was just like, we've got to give Trevor something to do.
But they don't actually they don't really get together.
No, they
so
don't.
That's
No,
still
no.
open
Yeah.
for to be developed in the future.
Yeah.
If if that's going to become like the central romance of
a future movie,
this group, like the sort of Venkman and Dana, then they've left that, they've set it up nicely. If they're not going to pursue that anymore, then it did feel a bit pointless and flat. My other thing was, and again, it's a tiny thing, but all right, I liked the fact that this was a continuation of 1, despite they ignoring 2. I liked the fact that they brought back Zool as the sorry, not Zool, Gozar as the villain. That's fine. That was all fine for me. But I must admit, when it got to the bit where Paul Rudd and the mum become Zool and Zool the gatekeeper and the keymaster.
Yeah.
When they got to that bit, it was at that point I felt like, okay, this is starting to feel like just a remake now.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't think that, I don't know. I mean, all right, I guess it's kind of necessary. Like, that has to happen every time.
Yeah.
In order to like awaken Gozar or something. But at that point, I thought it's literally the same. Like, they become the keymaster and the gatekeeper, and there's even, she's even doing the same thing in the chair that Sigourney Weaver was doing.
She was, yeah.
And she was Sigourney Weavering.
You sure was, yeah.
And then and Paul Rudd was even doing the same walk as Rick Moranis does. That sort of like where it almost looks like a chimp, where he's got his arms are dragging on the floor.
Yeah.
Are you the gatekeeper? And then they sort of meet and they like, mate or whatever.
It's heavily implied that they hump.
And then they go
That's
up.
A quote from the movie, by the way.
They turn up and they turn into the dogs. I thought, okay. I was like, come on. This is a bit. We're straying into remake territory now, and but not as good.
Yeah.
Luckily, I think they saved it.
They did, yeah.
By getting the mum out.
Yeah.
Straight away, having her, and then moving the finale, because again, that whole, the Mind Palace thing, that looked exactly the same set as the original one.
Oh yes, so the temple is like they basically this is in movie. It's pretty much the same temple.
It is, yeah.
So
because it's supposed to be,
yeah.
But I like that they moved it away from that back to the farm, and because that. Because again, otherwise it's just, right. So there's going to be the same thing over and over again. They're going to turn up, cross the streams, kill Gozar.
But it subverted expectation.
Yes, it did. In
a very non-Ryan Johnson way.
Yes.
By not being dog shit.
Yeah.
And basically just being like, this is what you expected, because you expected the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But what we're actually going to do is we're going to take that and we're just going to twist it
ever so slightly, but not in a completely like ridiculous manner. Yeah. And then we get to, obviously, the moment that I think it's fair to say everyone has been waiting for, and what the film was inevitably leading towards. Which is the. Before
you do say that, Phoebe phones Ray.
That's right, yeah.
And he goes on a bit of an exposition dump about like what's been going on.
He does, doesn't he?
Which I don't think was really necessary.
Seemed a bit random because he didn't know who this random girl was that was calling him.
No.
So why would he divulge all this information to her?
Yeah.
I feel like she should have said at the start of the phone call, "I'm Egon's granddaughter."
That just needed a bit of a different cutting.
And then that would have made more sense as to why he would then basically do a monologue about what happened to the Ghostbusters.
Dan Aykroyd, he just went on a bit of a, it just felt like a bit of a weird exposition dump. I didn't really like that.
Yeah.
I thought the scene, if it had been changed, like we said, she just says she's Spengler's granddaughter, and then he could have been like, and then because he could have still said the line. He says the line, well, he can go to hell, and she's just like, he died last week. He could have just been like, oh,
and then she said, he was my grandfather.
Yeah, and then it would have made sense for him to talk about it.
I agree. And then at the end of the phone call, rather than the phone call ending with, he was my grandfather, as it does in the film, it could have ended with her saying, we need your help.
Yeah.
Please help me.
Yeah.
And him just maybe saying something like, I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And puts the phone down.
Yeah.
That would have set it up much more nicely.
Yeah.
So again, we've just fixed another film.
A film that didn't really need fixing.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
It's just a scene that maybe needs a little
tweak.
Needs a bit of zhuzhing up by 2 reels.
But you're right to. I forgot about that actually. I must admit, because it was a nice but unremarkable cameo.
Yeah.
Do you know what they even could have done? They could have even just not had. We didn't need to see him. The whole shot could have been her. We could have just heard his voice on the phone. And saved the appearance.
They did a fake out, didn't they? They did a fake out because that scene in the trailer.
It's just his voice, isn't it?
No, but you hear Bill Murray's voice.
Oh yeah. Not on the phone.
In the trailer, when Dan Aykroyd, it turns out, picks up the phone.
Yeah.
The voice is Bill Murray.
Is it?
Yeah. In the trailer, where he's like, "We're closed." It's a different it's a different audio, and then in this I was like, oh, that's that's Dan Aykroyd.
I don't mind that.
No, I was okay.
I'd rather a
with
fake out than a spoiler than a trailer. 100%.
Yeah, and then obviously in the finale when it turns from the chase of being in the town, and then like Paul Rudd is still the devil dog, and he's like chasing them, and they make it back to the farm.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sets it up, and there's a great bit of tension where the surprise guest starring of Olivia Wilde as Gozer,
and J.K. Simmons as Thandor,
as the guy who built the building of.
They were both very out of the blue cameos.
But I thought that was cool.
I liked that as well.
Twice in the cinema.
They're not even credited.
No, J.K. Simmons not credited.
Well, I looked it up on. I've been looking this up on IMDb.
Yeah.
To see who was in it, and I was surprised by their appearance. So. I knew Sigourney Weaver was going to be in it because her name's listed on IMDb.
Yeah, and it's also in the credits before she even turned up.
But I didn't know that those two were going to be in it at all. But it was nice. It was a good. That was a good little. Both of them were like, hang on a minute, is that Olivia Wilde? Is that J.K. Simmons? Like,
yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
That's random.
And it's like a decent. I mean, kind of. Like weird but kind of decent fake out where J.K. Simmons is awoken when Gozer lives because some sort of force that's coming from inside this inside the mine, inside the is it inside the temple or just inside the mine, where he's like laying in the glass.
It's before the temple bit, so I think it's the mine.
Inside the mine, yeah. So the force of these ghosts, these souls, every time that they get closer to re-emerging from the depths, J.K. Simmons gets more and more alive, and the further down they get, they're kept at bay by Spengler's contraptions. And then he like wakes up, and she just like rips him in half.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I thought that was pretty funny. Another fake out, because you're like, it's J.K. Simmons. I'm sure he'll have more of a role than Gozer. I did all this for you, like, so we could both rule the, and then just gets like ripped in half. Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, they chase them back to the farm, and it's been established by this point that they call him the dirt farmer, Spengler, until he died, but he wasn't a dirt farmer. He was just planting traps, turning the farm into basically just one big trap.
Yeah.
And so the finale, the showdown goes on there. Another good use of the twists on your expectation is they cross the streams like they did in the first movie. The Bill Murray and the main actors from the first one, and they cross the streams, and it just Gozer learns from the first movie, so she's just like she untangles the streams when it's around her. So it's another thing where I was just like, oh, they're going to do the bit, and then that at first I was like, well, surely that's not going to be it, like that's not just how they're going to defeat her, defeat it. But I thought that was a good subversion of expectation too.
Yeah. It
is a great moment when they all appear on screen.
Yeah, I know when that. I mean, do you know what? Speaking of expectations being subverted, when they appear, we everyone knew it was coming. We knew it was coming. We knew it was coming at that point as well, because it was obvious. Like it's just not in a it's predictable way, but just in a this feels like it's the moment.
Oh yeah.
And then I knew as soon as they were all like defeated, if you will.
Yes, yeah.
And it looked like they were about to
die.
I thought this is it, and sure enough, there it is, the three of them together, and you're like, wow, this is the moment, and it absolutely delivered.
Yeah.
I mean, I was buzzing. I was like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for since 1989.
Yep.
This is nearly 40 years we've been waiting for this moment, and it was a great payoff. It didn't seem like forced or shoehorned in, because they had, as we just said, they had that set up earlier. So, and we knew it was going to happen. I really liked that, but I must admit, the next sort of big reveal, if you like, and again, massive spoiler alert here, mind you, if you're with us at this point in the podcast,
too late.
We've the whole feels a spoil, but I must admit, I was not expecting the cameo of Harold Ramis,
the ghost of Spengler.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that either. I thought they had done their bit with the character.
I did too.
Where they have it silhouetted so that you can't really. You can tell who it is.
Yeah.
But obviously they don't want to reveal like, oh, it's a stand-in or
that opening scene. I thought, oh, that's their way of
including
fitting him in.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting it at the end.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I don't know how they do it, but they very, very cleverly bring him back as a ghost, but they have sort of obviously used CGI. I'm guessing.
I feel like it's.
I mean, it's quite clearly him, and it's him as an old man. So they've obviously taken. I guess they've taken an image of him from another film.
Yeah, they've done what they do for these facial reconstructions.
Yeah, like
when they do young Yeah.
How do they do that?
Like de-aging technology.
Yeah, that kind of thing, isn't it?
I feel like it's, like with the example I'll give is like with Peter Cushing from Rogue One.
Yes.
Less so Carrie Fisher, but she's only in it for a little while. But the it's easier to make it look less uncanny valley if it's a ghost like they do with Howard Ramis.
Exactly.
Because you're not going for realistic.
Because and then it's not like, oh, that's obviously CGI.
You're creating an effect of a ghost. And it does have to look like him, obviously, and they get it so fucking spot on.
Oh, listen, mate.
It's the best. I feel like that's the best use of that technology.
Yeah.
Because they are allowed to have him as a ghost.
Yeah.
Because every other time, you are creating another human. It has to be real.
Yeah.
As to the point, as close as you can get. And there will always be that uncanny valley. I feel like we're getting closer to it being a lot better.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate. Like, one of the most... I think I've talked about it already on the podcast before, but the Luke Sky... again, the spoilers for Mandalorian Season 2, but the Luke Skywalker shot when he takes his hood off in Mandalorian Season 2, I don't think that's good at all. In fact, like, it's quite obvious, and he doesn't blink. It's so unhuman.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, this is bad. Like, and it's a really cool scene. Like, it's Luke Skywalker returning, to what he should be. Not going to say anything else about that, but that's a bad example.
Yeah. This
is the best example.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, it looks like you said, because he's a ghost, therefore he's sort of covered in like a
glow,
a bluish white glow. It looks fantastic, and it looks so realistic. I honestly, even the first shot where you just see a ghostly hand grab her hand.
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be it. I didn't realise we were going to get the full body
shot. Yeah,
honestly, mate, I cried.
Yeah, I shed a tear.
I was so like, because when he died in real life, I was genuinely sad about it, and I saw like a not like a meme, but it was a cartoon drawing, and it was of the three Ghostbusters waving goodbye, and then it showed him as a ghost, like floating out of a trap.
Oh, nice!
Like, they're all like waving goodbye to him with tears in their eyes. I remember when he died, I saw that cartoon like on Facebook or something, and I thought that is so sad. And then when we were watching that film, I was like, oh my god, this is like that cartoon.
Yeah.
But I'm actually seeing it on screen.
Yeah.
And it was, oh mate, it just,
and their reaction to it as well. You like you said, you see the shot of him helping Phoebe with her proton, taking out Gozer, as well as the three guys, and then the shot kind of like goes upwards, and it's like all four of them.
Yeah,
and that was just like, it was just. I think it was perfect. I think.
It was honestly, mate. It was so touching, and it didn't feel like cheesy or stupid.
No.
And what was really good, I think, and is that they all treated it with, rather than making jokes about it, they all treated it with sort of poignancy and respect. I think the only slight joke, and it's not even that much of a joke really, is I think Venkman says, I thought you might show up. But other than that, like, they're all like, all the three original Ghostbusters. They all seem genuinely moved. Like, obviously Phoebe's moved, and then like the mum, when she like
reconciles.
Like she like hugs him, and then he like disappears, and then the camera pans up to space, and then it just comes up for Harold on the screen. Oh mate, I was just like, I was just like, Jason, what are you doing to me, man?
Yeah, man.
I'm, I was already silently crying, and now I'm just like silently blubbering
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
cinema, like
yeah.
trying. I've just constantly wiping my face,
I've got
thinking,
like the heaviest eyes anyone's ever had. And I'm just like, oh, you fuck.
oh mate, I was just,
It was fantastic.
it was perfect, man. It was so touching. It was great. It was just,
And then it ends on like a really kind of. I'm about to use the Ghostbusters theme and the word solemn in the same sentence, but once it had put for Harold up there, it was then just like, here's the car going back to New York,
yeah.
and then it was just like enter Ghostbusters theme. And then the title just came up, didn't it? It was just like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I
didn't
must-
even say Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is a bit weird.
I
but
must admit, I found that ending a bit, yeah,
maybe sudden.
not underwhelming. That's an unfair word, but it just was a bit abrupt.
It was abrupt,
and
yeah.
It was a bit, well, again, for want of a better word, it was just a bit flat.
Yeah,
It wasn't underwhelming, but it wasn't like a big grand finale either.
No, there was
was
no cheering crowds. There was no.
But I guess
but you can't
we
really
had
have
just
that.
had the whole Harold Ramis respectful goodbye
Yeah.
before Harold come up on the screen. But then like
It was just abrupt.
it was.
It wasn't
abrupt.
bad. It was just like.
I mean,
that's it.
If they're taking the car back to New York, I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe it was a. I don't know the reasons why, but like I was when we saw that bird's eye shot of the car driving over the bridge, I was expecting another shot of the three of them in the car driving,
Yeah.
as if they're driving back together.
That would have been good. Yeah.
With the music, the Ghostbusters theme, they're all driving in the car, the three of them, back, and then I don't know, maybe then you see them pull into the fire station or something, or I don't know. It just
It was just a little bit like full stop.
Yeah, it was a bit.
On the page, on the script, it was like for Harold, the car's going over the bridge, full stop, back to New York.
I mean, I don't know about you, but thinking back on it, I think they should have just ended it after
For Harold. Yeah.
and then just just fade to black, and then have the song playing over the end credits.
Yeah.
Something
And
strange.
then have the start of the end credits scene number 2
Yeah.
be the shot of the car going over the bridge.
Yes.
But with the start of the voiceover of Annie Potts talking to Spengler,
Yeah.
and then cut to the scene from the movie,
Yeah.
from the original,
Yeah.
and then when he looks at the token, then she's got it from the World's Fair, and then just continue that scene.
Yeah.
I think we just sorted that as well.
Again, we are the film fixers.
Yeah.
That should have been the title of our podcast, really.
Oh,
Film fixers. No, I'm only joking.
Can't change it now.
Oh, there they go, Ghostbusters. That also, one last thing as well is we've already talked about the post credit scene and how it does feel a bit out of place, and strange, but I must admit, the mid credit scene, that for me was even more random.
It was.
I mean, I get, they're playing the electricity shock. They're doing the experiment from the first film.
One, yeah.
But that, for me, I was like, this is so random. Like, are they together? Are they just friends?
Has Peter Venkman got psychic powers?
Why is she there? Like, that for me, I'm sorry to say, that did feel a bit forced. Like,
That was.
how can we shoehorn Sigourney Weaver into this film?
Yeah.
Even though her character's got no absolutely.
How can we only get her in for one day?
Yeah, it just seemed very. I don't know. It just seemed very out of the blue. Like, again, it would have. I don't know if it would have made more sense if we'd seen Venkman coming in through the door as he's just got back from from Somerville.
From Oklahoma, yeah.
Yeah, and he just gets in through the door, and he's like, "Oh, hey," he's like, "Honey, I'm home." And then it cuts to her, and she's like, "Where have you been?" And then it's like, oh, okay, so they're like living together, they're a couple. That kind of makes sense, or something like that.
Yeah, it was. It was just. I mean? It did just feel a bit.
It was just
weird.
It was just very random.
Could have been. It could have been a decent rewrite there. Like you said, just have him coming in, and she'd just be like, "Where have you been?"
Yeah.
And he's just like.
And then he makes a quip or a joke or something.
Just seeing a couple of friends about a ghost.
Yeah. Just saying goodbye to an old friend or something like that, and then it something like that.
Yeah, you know,
would have I think
would have taken a day to rewrite a scene.
Yeah,
that was that good. You know, wouldn't have taken that long at all to just have something of note.
Yeah.
Rather than them just play them playing the game was kind of gaggy.
I've got it. Here we go.
Right,
this would have served. This would have fixed the scene and served my inner fan. Right. Okay. He comes in through the door. Right. She comes. You just hear her voice. Where have you been? And then it cuts to her like standing there, like looking like.
Where have you? Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, I just went to say goodbye to an old friend or something," and then he like. Walks over to like give her a kiss or whatever, so it establishes that they're together now. And then the camera just sort of cuts back to like maybe like a shelving unit, and you see all like books and maybe some old photos of the Ghostbusters together, maybe some photos of him and her, like their life together, you know. And then it just tracks down, and on the shelf you just see a tiny little jar of pink slime.
Nice.
And then it just bubble pops up, and then it cuts to black. There you go. That's acknowledging too. That's my fan service.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say it pans out the window and you see the Statue of Liberty's gone.
Oh, now that would have been great.
Do you know what I mean?
Now that would have been good.
So it's like panning around the room, and then it's like open window, but then all you see is buildings, and then it's like open window, and it's a view out to the water. Yeah. And there's no Statue of Liberty. There's just the plinth.
No, I just want some acknowledgement of two.
Fair enough.
Or even if we've done.
I'll ask Ivan.
Even if without the slime.
Sorry, Jason.
You just have one of the photos on the shelf is from like them from two.
Yeah.
Like outside the museum.
Yeah.
Or this reminds me actually. Sorry to. This is another little thing. Is I was really hoping for a Rick Moranis cameo as well.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. Again,
the only
it might have felt forced, because I did feel like Sigourney Weaver's cameo was forced and pointless. But I really wanted a cameo from Lewis, because he's just as part of the first two films as the others.
And honestly, I feel like, I know they probably asked and he probably said no, but it's not even really a return to acting. Well, it's just reprising a role for a cameo.
Do you know about the story of him?
Oh yeah, he retired.
He quit acting to look after his wife, because she was I don't know if she got cancer, so he just quit. He gave up everything. Gave up Hollywood, gave up fame, gave up his career to care for his sick wife. I think that's beautiful. Or again,
so it would have been lovely to see him come back to an iconic role.
Just in a photo.
Yeah.
Even just in an
acknowledgement.
You know, because he was part. He was on their staff in two. He worked for them.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So you could maybe like a photo of all of them
at the end of two. Where there's 5 Ghostbusters.
When he's a Ghostbuster as well. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Because he is on the steps with them at the end. When everyone's cheering them and they're all on the steps of the art museum, he is there with them. So it is sort of implied that he's a Ghostbuster now. He's joined the team. I would have loved it if he'd come back. If he'd come back as well. I mean, you know, I don't know. Probably all the die-hard fans out there might have moaned about it.
Why?
I don't know. I meant as a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have had him, yeah.
Yeah.
Shame, but...
Why not?
Next time.
Well, maybe. We don't know what the future holds for the franchise now, but, you know... it's as we said, it's very left open, but at the same time, it does feel like it's like
there's a new chapter starting.
There's a new chapter starting, whilst at the same time, it's bringing the original to a satisfying conclusion, and that's what you want from a nostalgia sequel. Speaking of which, you wanted to ask the big question.
Yes. Is this the best nostalgia sequel ever? And if not, what is better? What is better than this?
Well, I've been thinking about this the whole time we've been doing this podcast. Quick look at the DVD shelf. Yes, I still have DVDs. Come at me in the comments. Well,
so I'm going to say that the rule for a nostalgia sequel is
establish the rule. That will help.
Is there's at least I'm going to say at least 10 years since the last iteration of the franchise.
Okay.
Because if I say more than that, it's, you get that it's 10 years plus since the last iteration, since the last incarnation of the franchise or films. That's pretty much it. It's a film where the initial hype has died down.
Yeah.
Enough time has been given that it's gone out of kind of consciousness in terms of movies, and then someone's just revived. Someone's just kind of said, wouldn't it be great if we had another Die Hard sequel? Or wouldn't it be great if we, buy Star Wars from Lucasfilm for $4 billion and make another trilogy?
The thing is, it's really difficult for me to define what makes a nostalgia sequel and what doesn't, because to use some examples, like Jurassic World very obviously is a nostalgia sequel, whereas could the same argument be made for an example, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Because although that
Never heard of it.
Right, okay. Well, but
yeah, go on.
Although that is awful,
yes,
it's not a rehash of the first film. It's just a fourth installment.
But it is a nostalgia sequel in the fact that the initial run of the popularity of this franchise was done.
Okay, yeah.
So and then just randomly on a whim they just decided we're going to do another one because it's about time.
Yeah. What do you think?
Now I'm just trying to, in my mind, think
of others.
Yeah.
Well, okay. One for me springs to mind, which I think is at least on par with this, but I don't know if it falls into the category of nostalgia sequel or just another part.
Yeah.
And that's Rocky Balboa.
Right. Okay. I believe it does.
Okay, because I love the Rocky series, as you know, and I think Rocky Balboa is a great film and a really solid sequel and installment to the franchise. I think it's in the top 3 for me, and I think that is another film like this where they took a massive risk. Brought this old character back, but it doesn't feel like it's we're just doing this for the sake of it and for nostalgia and let's do this and that and that.
I feel like a nostalgia sequel doesn't have to just be a cash grab.
Yeah,
it can be like they're all well established franchises. Otherwise, they wouldn't get one.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit like they are reliant on what's come before.
Yeah.
But it's so long ago that it's not exactly fresh in people's minds. It's not exactly still in conversation day to day about what's current in terms of film.
Yeah.
So I feel like that film does fall into that. But I'm not trying to say that absolutely every nostalgia sequel is bad and is a cash grab on your childhoods or a different time in your life,
Yeah.
That's because this is a nostalgia sequel, but it is also great.
Yes,
so
I agree.
There are ones, but we are in a time where there is the other end of that spectrum where people are just like just milk it.
Yeah. Oh well, look. Yeah, you're right, and I agree with you. And I think a good nostalgia sequel stands on the shoulders of its predecessors and lifts it
higher
to new heights. A bad nostalgia sequel stands on the shoulders of its predecessors and shits all over them.
Shits everywhere.
And like Rocky Balboa, this film very much falls into the first category in that it stands on the shoulders of its previous installments.
Yeah.
But it doesn't shit all over them. It lifts them up. Lifting me higher and higher. Call back to 2 there.
He loves it.
So, is it the best? I don't know. But it's definitely a great example. It's definitely the best example of respectfully including the its original source material well. But to be honest with you, other than Rocky, I can't think of any other better examples. So probably
Yeah, and this again, we used it twice already, but this just has to be considered a blueprint for those types of films going forward, because it hit most of its marks.
Yeah.
It's hit the nostalgia mark well, but because it's nods to the original are important to the story. It's all bar a Twinkie and a drawer, it's all quite integral. And it all just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I can't think of too many better. I don't know about best nostalgia sequel. We'll have to do more research before we get to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And we'll do more podcasts on those. Don't know really what the future holds for Ghostbusters, but on the basis of that, I'm quite excited. I'd like to see more.
Yeah.
I don't know what the future holds, but what does the ratings hold?
For
let's go. Obviously, we're going to do them in order.
Obviously.
But the biggest question of all, as always, is what are we going to do it out of?
Yep.
For the first one, I'm going to have to say Stay Puft Marshmallow Men.
Of course. Yeah.
So what do you give Ghostbusters 1 out of 5 giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Men?
I give Ghostbusters 1 4 giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Men out of 5.
Ooh. See, I feel like maybe you giving this a 4 is as close as you being quizzical as to why I didn't give The Matrix a 5.
Ooh.
Which is serious, a bone of contention that's arisen.
But Liam, listen, I love Ghostbusters. I love it. I love it more than I love The Matrix. But I don't think Ghostbusters is a 5-star movie. Whereas I think The Matrix absolutely definitively is a 5-star film. So that's my justification for me giving this a 4 out of 5.
Okay. And I'm going to give it a 5.
Ooh.
Giving only my second 5 of the podcast.
Yeah, it's weird that, isn't it? Because I'm definitely a harsher critic, but I've given out more 5s than you, haven't I?
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Although you say that though, but I'm pretty sure we both gave all 3 Lord of the Rings films 5s.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
But that just one?
I guess
that still only counts as 1. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Honestly, mate, I don't think I can remember what I gave. I definitely probably gave Back to the Future a 5.
I can't remember either. I've given out a few here.
Okay, but yeah. So this, I feel like I'm gonna put in a bracket. This year, yeah, Back to the Future was.
I mean, certainly recently, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Since the cinemas have reopened, I've only given 2 5s.
We both definitely gave Toy Story 3 a 5.
Yeah,
when we did the Pixar podcast.
No, but that was a top 5. That was just a 1 to. Or did we give it a star rating?
Oh, did we not rate it? I think we just rated it as number 1.
I can't remember
either.
Anyway, let's move on to
a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
So, Ghostbusters 2.
You can go first this time.
What are we gonna do that out of?
I mean, we could do it out of Rivers of Slime, out of Janosch's, out of
why don't we do it out of 5 pig-faced Dan Aykroyd? You know, when he gets when he gets turned into he's got like pig makeup on.
Yeah, slime him.
Yeah,
yeah. Tuck in the guts, guys. We're the Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
I love to.
Yeah, let's do. Let's do. Do it out of 5 bubbling jars of slime.
Nice. Bubbling jars of slime.
And I'm gonna go with. Now, I'm gonna go with 3.5, being on the harshest side.
Oh my goodness!
And I'll tell you the reasoning is because I can't give it a 3.8.
What?
Or a 3.75. Yes.
Oh mate, I am gutted. Gutted.
This will be the last Two Reels podcast between me and Harry, it seems.
Oh, I wish I'd never come back now.
Harry's going to be doing a lot.
Stayed in retirement. Can you get the shotgun out and just kill me again? Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, I'm giving it 4.5.
Okay.
Bubbling jars of slime out of 5. It just edges me on the 0.5 there over 1 because, as I've said, I much prefer it. I think it's better, but I completely acknowledge that I'm in the very small minority of just me in that camp. So I'm sorry, listeners. Please don't unsubscribe.
I'm just imagining it. I'm just imagining you.
Welcome to the Ghostbusters 2 fan convention, guys.
I'm just imagining it. It's like a massive hall and it's just absolutely empty. It looks like what was it, like TanaCon or like what was that?
Kunacon in South Park.
No, there was one in real life where it was like a Tumblr event where there was just like a little paddling pool with like balls in.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining it being you, and you've got like a little name tag, and it's like chairman of the Ghostbusters 2 fan club.
Chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, secretary, and only fan. Oh dear, yeah,
brilliant.
I know. Well, listen, guys, drop us some comments. What do you think of Ghostbusters 2? Does anyone out there agree with me, or am I just completely by myself here?
Yeah, any of those, just at us on Twitter at Two Reels, like us on Facebook at Two Reels, and also Instagram. Follow us at Two Reels Podcasts. Nice. All of those Two Reels Podcasts. just let Harry know that he's not alone out there.
Yeah, please, someone. There must be someone out there. There's 7 billion people on the planet. Surely.
There's 7 billion people that listen to Two Reels podcast.
Listen,
Surely
someone out there. If you agree with me and you think Ghostbusters 2 is better, then find me on Instagram. Let's be friends, because we're
he's got another convention coming up and he doesn't want to pay for it just by himself.
Because I need someone to come to my convention.
I need someone to give me deposit money for the hall.
Yeah, I bought 50,000 t-shirts and I've still got all of them in my room.
Oh, good. And then for Ghostbusters Afterlife, I mean, I can really only think of doing it out of 5 Paul Rudding.
It's got to be.
Out of 5 Paul Rudding.
Yeah.
And what would you give it out of 5?
I give Ghostbusters Afterlife, I think, a very respectable and solid 4 Paul Rudding. Paul Rudding, yes. Out of 5. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it had some, again, for want of a better word, flaws.
Yeah,
but
a few flaws and a few missed opportunities.
Missed opportunities. That's a much better expression. Yeah, a few missed opportunities. A few sort of like, needed a few tweaks here and there. Not a perfect film like Ghostbusters 2. But it's but you know what? Solid sequel / installment. Definitely up there in the top 3 best franchise, best nostalgia sequels ever made. Everyone was on great form. I love the characters. I really like the new team, which was a surprise. I was expecting to hate them.
Yes.
And very, very touching and emotional tribute to the late great Harold Ramis. So it's a solid minimum 4 for me.
And I'm gonna go for a 4.
Yeah.
4 Paul Rudding out of 5. All the same reasons. It's so solid as a return to a franchise that has been dormant for so long. And honestly, I just, I could expect it to be a 5, but I mean, what films are like? It would have to have been like an instant classic for it to be a 5.
Like The Matrix, which you gave a 4 to.
Did I give it a 4? I swear I gave it 4.5. No, I definitely didn't give The Matrix a 4.
I think you did.
Honestly, I'm gonna go re-edit.
It was shocking.
I'm gonna go re-edit that podcast. Shocking. I fucking swear. But yeah, I give it a 4 because I couldn't have really. I know we've had some changes. We made some changes, some very good changes.
We did. As always.
But what else could I expect from this film? Honestly. And it's really good to come out of the cinema just like we were, just like smiling the whole time, and then obviously shedding a tear at the end, and then when we get out we're both absolutely beaming, and then it's so rare to leave a cinema like that, even after films that I have enjoyed more for different reasons. Like we were talking about Endgame, when I left the cinema for it, I was satisfied.
Yes.
I don't think I was as happy or as stirred quite emotionally. I mean, it was close because that's 10 years plus of filmmaking.
Yeah,
right
but
there.
it was a different.
It's a different
feeling of satisfaction.
Yeah, it's a different feeling of satisfaction. But this topped that, I think.
Yeah.
For me,
Endgame was more of a payoff.
Yes.
This was more of a satisfying farewell.
Yeah.
/ conclusion.
Yeah. And then to see what this is where we're gonna go from here. They might not take it in a great direction, but you have to live in optimism after a sequel like this comes around.
Yeah.
So 4. Yeah. Paul Rudding, like only Paul Rudd can.
Yeah. And you know what? I may regret saying this later, but it's also given me a very faint glimmer. We're talking very faint, like 1% on your battery on your phone, faint.
Yeah.
But a very faint glimmer of hope for the future of not cinema as a whole. That's a bit dramatic, but
yes,
of
the current state of cinema.
Yeah, and of the
current trends of Hollywood.
The trends of cinema, the rehashing and rebooting of old material, and the big at the moment popularity with nostalgia sequels, and it's given me hope. It sort of proves that, I do genuinely believe that this film was made with love and respect and heart, and it wasn't just a cash grab. I in no way felt that this was a cash grab at all, and I don't feel like that really for anything else these days. Any of my favourite franchises, I don't feel like it was brought back for this reason or this reason or this reason. A part of me deep down just think, yeah, this is because a bunch of executives sat around and said, let's bring back this franchise so we can make money off it.
We literally have the rights to this franchise, let's make money.
And that's how it felt when they made and released the event. That thing that happened 2016, that did feel like that, because it was using that name, that brand, to cash in on it. That was trying to play on nostalgia, but that's a great example of doing it badly.
Yes.
This was a great example of doing it very, very, very well.
Yes.
So,
for that reason, if you're an executive at a movie studio and you want to do a nostalgia sequel, who are you going to call? Jason Reitman.
Strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! If there's something weird and it don't look good, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters!
So while Liam's in the toilet, I'm just going to take this opportunity to reiterate that Ghostbusters 2 is way better than 1.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts. I ain't afraid of no ghosts.